Hey guys, Jason from the Film Guild here, and about halfway through this week's recording we realized that we hadn't dropped in our usual warning, so I'm just going to slip it in right here. All of our podcasts are extremely spoiler heavy. In fact, we usually give the entire film away, so if you haven't seen this week's film, Parasomnia, run off, give the film a go, come back, and listen to what we had to say about it. Thanks again guys, and enjoy our conversation on Parasomnia. Welcome to the Film Guild. I am Jason. I am here with...
What's up, guys? It's Fred.
Hey, how you doing this week?
Little Bernie, but beyond that, A-okay.
Little Bernie. You had a little excursion this week.
I did, man. Got to go hang out at the river for like 2 hours. Forgot sunscreen, so,
Wow.
That's going on.
Wow. So you're a little toasty.
Yeah, just a little bit.
And the Pacific Northwest this week it's incredibly hot. It's 100 degrees in Oregon today. And the drink I'm having this week, the ice is already melted, and I just put it in a few minutes ago. That's how hot it is right now. I'm recording in a room. I can't have my AC on, of course, because it runs in the background and makes a hideous noise. So we're just going to have to, sweat it out, I guess.
Well, what are you drinking this week, Smeg?
This week, I have the last bottle that you left at my house a few weeks ago when you were here of Pop. It is Soda Boy Quality Beverages Caramel Cream. It's very caramely.
Very nice.
What are you drinking?
This week, I'm drinking some Lemmy Sparkling Lemonade.
Sparkling lemonade?
Yeah, boy, it's actually not bad.
That sounds delish, actually.
It's
picked
good? It up for yeah. Now that I've actually tried it, it's actually pretty okay.
Nice. We should be making a list of this stuff because I know you've probably drank most of what I.
Oh, I've drunk like 100% of what you've had.
Have you?
I'm actually running out of stuff that I haven't tried at that at my usual grocery store where I pick this stuff up. All they've got left is like the Americana brand beverages, which I'm going to be drinking one of those next week.
Nice.
And I'm always like super iffy on those.
Well, next time you're here, you're going to have to bring a whole bunch of specialty beverages with you.
I mean, I kind of have to, otherwise you're not going to have anything to drink.
That's true, right? Well, in addition to that, actually, I have McDonald's coffee here too. When I run out, I've got some coffee to carry me through.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's McDonald's coffee, but what are you going to do, right?
I mean, coffee's coffee, though, right?
Sure, exactly. So you decided this week we're going to check out Parasomnia from 2008.
Yes, we did.
Last week we watched Would You Rather and got some great attention, some love from the official Would You Rather movie Twitter, which was amazing.
Yes, it was. And
shout out to you for engaging them and some of their fans last week on Twitter.
Yeah, I honestly wasn't expecting that movie to take off like it had, but like out of nowhere, that film was just trending on. Well, the hashtag was kind of trending on Twitter and stuff, and it was like, wow, this really has picked up a lot of attention for a 3-year-old movie.
Yeah, it was great. It was a good time, but it had Jeffrey Combs in it, so you kind of decided this week we were going to check out Parasomnia.
Yes, we did.
Which also has Jeffrey Combs in it.
Although I'll admit, it took me a little bit longer than I'd like to have figured out which character was Jeffrey Combs. It took me going to the Wikipedia page to figure it out.
You could tell by his voice a little bit. The last couple of movies that I had seen him in up to this point was House on Haunted Hill. He plays the doctor that gets killed.
Right.
I don't remember the doctor, but he's kind of the.
Are you talking like the bad doctor dude, or like one of the actual characters?
No, the bad doctor.
Oh, right. So Dr. Vandercut.
Yeah.
Shout out to Return on House on Hill. Return to the House on Haunted Hill.
There you go.
I don't know if was he in that one too.
We probably should, right? Actually, I think we're gonna do a dual episode of the two together, aren't
we? Yeah, we were gonna do original House on Haunted Hill and then the remake.
Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, that was our plan, because it was one of those things where we were looking at doing a look back at the original one and the remakes or whatever.
You are correct, but yeah, so he's like the wiggly ghost when everybody's in the house, and you see him, he's like blah, 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 doing some weird
and
stuff,
then like slice people's faces off and stuff.
Right. So he had a mustache in that, and then in Would You Rather he had a mustache as well. So when I saw him in this one, it actually took me a couple of seconds, but his voice got me in this one. I mean,
that's things I think that's what really helped tip me off, though, where I was like, okay, well, it's going to be either one or two characters that's him.
So we checked out Parasomnia. I've seen it before, but it's been like, I think I saw it when it originally came out. The movie came out in 2008, but it didn't actually come out on DVD until I believe 2010.
Yeah.
And that's actually when I saw it, and I haven't seen it since then, so it was almost like the first time. There was definitely some things that I didn't quite remember.
Oh, like I honestly didn't remember like the second half of this film at all.
Oh, really?
I remember to about the point where where the girl has to go back to the hospital.
Right.
But the way that I remembered it, he took her back for whatever reason. So,
okay.
Needs to say, like, the second half of this movie was a complete surprise for me.
Yeah, I have to actually admit, I remember like the bit of him bringing her home, and then I don't remember the back half. I don't remember the sideshow,
Right?
which I absolutely loved. But so let's get the technicals out of the way. It runs at 103 minutes. It came out. It started in the festival circuit in 2008. Didn't find a DVD distributor and didn't come out until 2010. Something for the film freaks. It was shot in 16 millimeter, but it was blown up to 35 millimeters. So sometimes it's got a little bit of the picture isn't as sharp maybe as it could be.
I was say, is that why it's always so like it felt very grainy at times?
A little bit, yeah. I think when you blow that up like that, you get a lot of that. But the biggest, like I guess the most talked about aspect of this film is the fact that William Malone, who did House on Haunted Hill, he also did Fear.com.
See, I wonder if it's his work on House on Haunted Hill that led Jeffrey Combs to come in on this.
It's very possible, I think. There's actually somebody else in there that was, or a couple of people, I think, that came over from House on Haunted Hill as well. But he did a Masters of Horror episode that I actually still haven't seen.
Oh, really? That's actually a pretty good one.
Yeah?
Yeah, or at least if I remember it well.
But anyway, this film was conceived, written, and made completely separate of the studio system. He and a couple of friends apparently like mortgaged their houses. They broke the number one rule in Hollywood, which is never to use your own money. You know, it always kills me sometimes when you hear like, oh, we're trying to find financing for this movie. You know, like Spielberg or somebody will be like, you know, oh, we're looking for somebody to pick this up. And it's like, dude, you have like $100 million. Like, seriously?
Yeah.
But it's the number one rule. Like, don't ever use your own money. He broke that and mortgaged his house. And I'm not sure. I had heard like it wasn't really a very good investment financially, but unfortunately at the same time that they were like finishing this up, the big indie movie craze like kind of collapsed back in 2008. He kind of assumed that because he had kind of a really interesting movie that it was going to pick up a distributor, and it didn't.
Yeah, that's the thing that I remember reading is it was really hard for them to pick up any kind of distribution for it.
Right. So they hit the festival circuit to try to drum up a lot of interest, and it wasn't until 2010 that it actually came out on DVD and Blu-ray, I believe. So
can I be perfectly honest?
You absolutely can be 100% honest.
Oh, okay, great. I was a little worried for a minute there. This film was a lot better in my memory than it actually was. I did not like this film.
Did you not?
I did not. I honestly, I've got points in my note, or a point in my note where I make a note of, we're an hour in, and it feels like it's been 5. You know.
Oh, wow.
I think I made a note at like an hour 28. Why is this film still going on?
Oh, wow.
I could not get into this movie at all.
That surprises me a little bit. It did get a 29% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Well, here's my thing though, is it got really high reviews on IMDb, because I was thinking, I'm like, well, I can't be alone in this, right? Like, some other people must not have liked it, but no, I found so many people who actually liked it on IMDb, so clearly I'm just out of my mind here.
The thing is I will say this. I didn't dislike the film, but viewing it now, I don't know, maybe my tastes have changed or something, but in the 5 or 6 years since I saw it, I definitely was not as enamored with it as I initially was. I still like it, and there are definitely some aspects of this film that I absolutely love. Overall, I was kind of like, I don't know, I must have had some really romanticized memories or something, because I was kind of like, I remember being really a lot more excited about this than before.
Well, and that's the thing, is it feels like it's one of those movies I'm going to look back at, 3 years from now and think, I really want to watch this again. This was a really great movie, and I'm going to watch it. I'm going to be like, oh, that's right. I guess I didn't like this as much as I thought.
So let's see. What else do we have? So it stars Sherilyn Wilson, who hadn't done a whole lot up to this point. She did some TV. This was her first movie. She actually, just before this, had done an episode of Supernatural.
Really?
And and I don't remember the episode. It was like Long Distance Call or something like that, and I don't remember.
Oh, is that the one where all the people start getting calls from like dead relatives and stuff? So like Dean gets a call from his dad. I think it's like season 2 or 3 or something.
Oh, that's possible.
But then that sounds about right, because we're like 9 seasons into Supernatural.
Yep, I just actually I'm on IMDb. I just looked it up.
4 seasons past its expiration date.
Oh, let's not get into that. It also stars Patrick Kilpatrick, which I didn't. I mean, he's got one of those faces that for some reason I want to remember stuff he's in, but I looked him up and I don't really recognize anything he was in.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense.
It has Dylan Purcell in it. I don't really know who he is, but he was pretty good in it. And of course Jeffrey Combs, and a couple of there's actually 3 cameos of people that I recognize. Well, not really cameos, but they're people that I recognize. The very first one is actually at the very beginning. Can I say though, despite what we've just said about the movie, that it probably has one of my maybe like 2 favorite openings of all time?
Yeah, go ahead.
The first thing is we fade into Sean Young. You probably haven't seen a whole lot with her or not, but did you ever watch Dune?
Yes. Like
David Lynch's Dune?
Yeah, I finally watched it. You should be really proud of me for that, because that was years in the making.
I am very proud of you. And she has a flip phone. And a flip phone is apparently like a very prevalent theme in our show so far, that everybody has flip phones. This was 2008.
I haven't thought about it, but you're right, yeah.
Yeah, every film that we've done so far has had a flip phone. And at exactly like 37 seconds in the movie, she flips her phone open, listens to it for like 10 seconds, gets up. She's like having breakfast or something, like on a balcony.
She seems really nervous during the breakfast though, because she like is constantly twirling her knife and,
Yeah,
it feels very antsy.
Yeah, it fades into her twirling the knife, actually. So.
Yeah, that's the very first shot.
Right. And so she answers the phone, she gets up, walks to the edge of the balcony, and just like drops.
Which, I gotta admit, I actually really like the camera work there, where, look, on my second viewing, or I guess technically third, because I started watching it and I fell asleep last night, and so I can go and rewatch it today.
That's a great...
To be fair,
that's a great sign.
Last night, I mean, you gotta figure 4 hours of driving and everything. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, it's all right. I agree. When she jumps off, the camera actually follows her, and like it kind of does this weird digital comp thing where it kind of shows her falling to the bottom.
Yeah.
And then when it hits, like the camera rolls over, basically.
Yeah, that was honestly, like, I really loved that shot. That was what originally had got me started. I'm like, oh, this is actually really neat, because like the way that the camera rolls and everything is something that I don't see often enough.
It does kind of seem like the camera really, like the cameraman really, like, or woman, really like followed her off of the balcony.
Please, camera person, man, you gotta respect the camera kin.
Sorry. The thing that kind of got me about it, which the like little things like kind of get me sometimes, but when the camera like settles on her, she like does this kind of like exhale.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Like she drops and then she just kind of goes, like her last like kind of breath. And for some reason, that took me by surprise, and it made me feel really unsettled. So that's the opening of the movie, and it reminds me a lot of The Grudge.
Yeah.
Where like Bill Pullman just like is sitting up in bed and he just like gets up and like walks out and like just falls out the window, basically.
Right.
Another one of those that you just kind of go, holy crap, what just happened here?
Remind me real quick, because I fall into this trap so often. Which one's Bill Pullman? Because I mix him up with Bill Paxton constantly.
It's okay. Bill Pullman is like the president at Independence Day.
Okay, that's what I thought it was.
In The Grudge, he was the teacher that she was like obsessed with. So yeah, that's a great opening to the movie. Like it's one of those that just like grabs you. Unfortunately, it kind of does grind to a very slow pace after that.
A very slow pace, because we've got like it feels like a 5-minute credit sequence. It's probably not that long. I didn't bother timing it, but it's a really long credit sequence. It's very like a kind of abstract, surreal type. Sometimes I got like a really weird sort of H.R. Geiger type of feel from it.
So he actually based kind of a lot of the artwork and definitely the Dreamscape on a Polish painter or artist named it's Zdzisław Beksiński.
Okay.
I know I butchered that.
No, you butchered the hell out of it, but I'll roll with it.
I really did. It's very hard. Like I'm sorry, guys.
To be fair, Polish names, like, they're all consonants.
I'm very American when it comes to that. But I have looked at some of his stuff, and I can totally see William Malone did a couple of movies like earlier in his career that he really desperately wanted to like do H.R. Geiger stuff with.
Right.
Like there's a really bad like kind of alien, I don't want to say knockoff, but alien-ish movie. Yeah.
Oh no, I saw that up on there. It was like one of his 3 most known things on IMDb.
Yeah, and he definitely captured this artist's work for sure. But we definitely get into like an act 1 like kind of grind. You know what I mean? Like it really like takes a lot of time to get to know our main guys, and our main guys basically are Danny Sloan,
right?
Who works in a vinyl record store. God, I miss vinyl record stores.
That's the thing is, I know that's probably the world's last record shop.
It probably is, like, right?
My local bookstore sells my local bookstore is not an average bookstore, man. It sells everything, but they have like a small record section. But beyond that, there's nothing in this area.
I don't know where this was supposed to have taken place, but
I
if
kept
you
trying to
base
figure
it
that out
on
because it's like it feels very sort of
New Yorkish,
yeah, New Yorkish large city, but it's like every time that they mention like every one of the big cities where like for example the next character that's introduced, I think his name was Phil. Um He's like, oh yeah, I was in Detroit last week for whatever reason,
right?
and, blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, so we're not in Detroit, and then they mention something else. It's like, all right, so we're not in like Seattle or something. Clearly,
Yeah, and some of the accents of like the detectives are very like New Yorkish accents, and it kind of I don't know, I was kind of confused with it.
it kind of leads me to I've got a whole point that I'm going to try and make, but
Sure.
and I'm going to spoil this early on, but I'm not entirely certain that this wasn't just the bad or like somebody's dream,
Okay.
and I'm not entirely certain that it wasn't actually the bad guy's dream.
It very well could be. Yeah, but if you were to base it on this record shop, I would say it was Seattle.
That's true. Yeah, I could almost believe that. I mean, it's got a whole
We're kind
feel
of
to
like
it,
that
yeah.
in Seattle. You know what I mean? Like, into the old bands and the vinyl and everything else. But yeah, so he's an artist. He's in art school, and he works in a record store, and he has several conversations with a friend who is also a like 60s garage band. He's very much into 60s garage bands. And they have multiple conversations about this band, like the Boss Man.
Yeah, the Boss Man
was the band from the 60s.
Yeah,
and how this guy ran into the drummer, and he's going to try to get some. He's going to try to get some like records that apparently don't exist anywhere. He's got like some spare ones that nobody has,
which I don't get. Like, is that a thing that people do?
like collect records like that. I guess.
Well,
so,
not
yeah.
collect records like that, but like, oh yeah, I was in a band, we didn't take off, and now I've got a bunch of these vinyls on hand that I've kept for
For, almost 50 years. Maybe I don't know. It's possible. I was never really in a
maybe
band.
it's one of those things where you come over and he's like using them for coasters and he's trying to push them off on everybody, and he's the guy who you don't want to go to.
These guys are like waiting for eBay to take off.
God, it reminds me of I think it's a TV show or movie or something where there's a character that's just like that, who's like an old washed up like 80s synth rocker.
Yeah.
Or something like that, and is trying to every time somebody comes by, he's trying to push off all of his records and everything. If somebody can figure out what the fuck I'm talking about, because I don't know if this is just some fever dream,
It could be.
Let me
It
know.
could be your sunburn taking effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you know what that is, send us a tweet, let us know.
From my very vague description.
So out of nowhere, it kind of, I don't know, like it confused me a little bit, but he suddenly remembers he's supposed to meet his girlfriend for lunch, I guess.
Yeah.
Goes home, all the stuff's missing. His hot neighbor's like, hey, are you moving? Because I saw your couch in the alleyway.
Right, and I actually watched this with Mike, and he actually made a note of this already.
Mike is your brother.
Yeah, Mike's your other son. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I do.
Okay, good.
Kind of.
So Mike made a note that his girlfriend took everything in the flat in less than 4 to 5 hours.
Yes.
Like everything the guy owns is out on the street.
Except
apparently.
for like your first clue he's an artist is his like easel, not his easel, what is it? Like his drawing table
Yeah.
is like there. So out of nowhere, I mean, he kind of goes in and sees all the stuff's missing. He's like, oh, well, better go visit my friend in the mental institution.
I mean, we have to assume
Actually,
that
the
it's
psych
sometime
ward.
later just because it's like he was only on his lunch break. He's probably not even halfway through his shift.
It's
if it's anything like
probably,
around here, you're only 2 hours into your shift and you still got 6 hours left. Fuck you, old workplace.
Yeah. So I mean, time in this movie like has some issues for me, but we'll get into that. But yeah, so he goes and visits his buddy Billy Dornboss,
Right.
who is in the psychiatric ward for a court-ordered drug rehab thing, which I don't know, I thought was kind of odd. The whole psychiatric ward was kind of odd to me. I've never been to a psych ward, so I don't.
Well, my
really
thing is like
know how
there's
they work,
literally
but-
no security in that psych ward. Oh wait, no,
Zero.
there's a security guard.
right.
Or no, there's two because they show another one later.
The guy you're thinking of is actually the head of security, by the way. He's listed in the credits.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Well, because it's just like there's several times where this main character just waltzes through the area and nobody questions him.
Right.
He'll do a little bit of hiding, but nobody's paying any attention.
Yeah. So he goes and visits his friend who's in rehab, basically, a psych ward, and he just kind of walks in. But I almost kind of feel like his friend maybe should have been in the psych ward anyway, because what did he do?
He stole all the doorknobs off the doors and like is just polishing them.
The doorknobs and the locks off of all the doors are like spread around him, and he's polishing them. He's like, "What are you doing? Polishing?
Look,
Okay."
man, when you're in a psych ward, all you got time to do is polish your knobs.
I guess. Like, I don't know. Well, he's also an artist, but he does like metal sculptures.
Yeah,
So maybe he respects the metal, like he wants it to be shiny and clean.
sure.
Basically, I'm kind of gonna paraphrase a lot of this to try to not go longer than the running time of the movie, like we have the last couple of last couple of episodes. So basically, his friend kind of, as he's leaving, his friend Billy says, "Hey, go check this freak out down the hall," which is another thing I'm going to bring up many times. I don't know, like you draw a fine line of really harping on things, but this really bothered me through the whole movie. So he walks down the hallway and basically goes to the cell and peeks through the thing where we see Byron Volp.
Yep.
Who I've struggled to find words to describe how this guy is presented in this cell.
Well, here's the thing: is I've got a note on here where it's like, is he wearing a bathrobe? Because it looks like that's what he's wearing. It's like a bathrobe and a hood, and he's like restrained. But those restraints are really shitty. Because the first thing he does is like pop out the mouth guard, or no, that's on his second appearance. He lifts up the hood and like stares in the main character's eyes.
Yeah, and that's kind of what a couple of notes that I had was like people can just wander into the neuropsychiatric ward.
Well, and here's the other thing, and I mean it's sort of explained later on why his cell is where it is, but it's like you've got the next room over that we're going to be going into. There is no like it's not a padded cell or anything. It's your average hospital room, and then the next door over it's a padded cell. It's
like a dungeon room, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels like something that would be on a whole nother level, like in the basement.
And he's wearing like a padded robe.
Yeah.
Like it's almost the same material like you'd see a padded room made out of. His arms are strung up to with these chains basically. So he's kind of strung up in the middle of the room with this hood on. And I'm just kind of going, is there a place in the world where he would be strung up like this in a psych ward, that he wouldn't just be strapped to a bed somewhere with...
Well, and it's like, as it is, that I think that probably violates a couple health codes.
There's something, I don't know. So Byron Volp is strung up there, and he kind of looks over, and he's not strung up very well because he lifts his hood up and looks at the main character and winks at him. And the thing is like the main character, Danny, is looking in there, and he looks over, and the head security guard is staring at him.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of going, later on, this character is basically described to be one of the most dangerous people in existence.
Yeah.
Why are you just staring at this kid looking into the cell?
Especially when you know the character's background. The whole bad guy's supposed to be a whole hypnotist type thing, and you're like, oh yeah, there's dudes staring in there, probably nothing. But then again, he doesn't react later when a nurse does the exact same thing.
Right. So, yeah, as he's leaving, he peeks in and he sees our other lead, Sherilyn Wilson, who plays Laura Baxter, who I believe I actually wrote down Laura, who's a babe, even with a tube down her nose. I don't know if she just has the most perfect skin in the world or not, but she definitely they definitely made her out to be otherworldly beauty.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
I guess it makes sense because they're going for the whole time a Sleeping Beauty type comparison.
This is definitely, I've heard a couple of different review things kind of say it's a modern take sort of on Sleeping Beauty, and maybe that's one of the reasons, because this was 6 years ago I saw the first time, and I was just very taken by this girl because I'd never really seen her before in anything, and I was just oh my god, she's a goddess, right?
Sure.
Another thing I'd like to say kind of off, well, not really off topic, but just kind of off, is I remember her being naked a lot more than she actually is in the movie.
No, I get that. I could have sworn that there was one or two more scenes where she at least had her top off, but no, I think she only shows up without a top on twice.
3 times, I think.
We'll go over those later.
Sure, but I definitely, in my mind, I remembered her being naked through half the movie. I just kind of went, what was wrong with me? I don't know what's going on.
Maybe during one of those hypnosis scenes, it's just those commands, they get to different people in different ways. I remember this film as being good. You remember her as having significantly less clothes on.
Yes, exactly. But so in the middle of it, doctors come in and they're kind of what are you doing here? And Mike actually had a specific note on this.
The main character makes a note of oh, I'm one of her relatives. And Mike made a note of that's one of the worst excuses that he's ever heard. Why in the world couldn't you think of anything better?
He's who are you? Why are you here? And he's oh, I'm a relative. And he's she doesn't have any relatives. That's why she's here. And he's I'm sorry, I'm just here visiting my friend. He's I said something, and he goes to the nurse, then he goes, can you have Mr. Dornbos please return all of the doorknobs and locks back to the doors?
Yeah, it's a nuisance and a health hazard to some of the patients.
Right.
Which, again, there's no security then, because how the fuck does this guy go through and take at least 6 lock assemblies?
Right.
Without anybody, noticing doing it.
Also on the floor that houses one of the most dangerous people alive.
Exactly, yeah.
I'd like to keep reiterating.
Because it only feels like they ever go onto one floor.
Right. So the doctor kind of lightens up and explains that she has Klein-Levin syndrome,
Yeah.
which I looked up, and it's basically referenced in the media as Sleeping Beauty syndrome, which actually there's a couple of points where he's researching this and it comes up as that.
And it comes up as a title drop of Parasomnia.
Right. Parasomnia is like it's like a catch-all.
Yeah.
Of several different kinds of sleep disorders. Like sleepwalking also falls under parasomnia.
What was one of those that I saw? Confused arousals?
Something that explains most of my days.
Came up almost every time I looked up Parasomnia, you know, just before I would click on the Wikipedia page.
Yeah, that in itself confuses me. I'm sure that's what you were looking up.
Exactly. I was actually looking up confused arousal on on Pornhub. Where do people go for porn these days?
I don't know.
I'm out of touch.
Yeah, me too.
4chan?
Oh, God. Yeah, so basically the Klein-Levin's syndrome is one in which you spend the bulk of your time asleep. You'll stay asleep for, like, most of the day. And it said, like, the article I read on a medical website basically said, like, you can spend, like, almost the entire time asleep. And you'll wake up and go to the bathroom. You'll wake up to do something, and then you'll just fall right back asleep.
Right.
And this can go on from anywhere from like upwards of 10 or 20 years sometimes. Mostly an adult thing, but it can sometimes happen in children. Basically, she spent most of her life asleep and only wakes up at random times and for random amounts of time.
See, which leads to one of my biggest problems with this film.
Sure.
Is, so the main character clearly falls in love with this girl.
Yeah, very quickly.
Yeah. Who, due to this illness, would probably have the mental equivalent of about 5 years old.
They do play with that a little bit.
So, I mean, that doesn't strike you as a bit weird, though? It's like, I don't know, man, there is some serious ethical questions. Well, and it felt like later on the character was very much channeling Mia Jovovich from in Fifth Element.
I agree. Absolutely,
that's all I could hear during those first few scenes where, spoiler alert, he abducts her from the fucking hospital.
I don't think we probably actually should have said that all of our podcasts are extremely spoiler heavy.
Yeah,
in fact,
I
we
didn't
give
realize,
away the movie, so
make sure that you splice that in at the very beginning.
I probably should, right? Yeah. So the doctor explains, like, you know, her condition or whatnot. Otherwise, she's pretty healthy, except for the fact she sleeps so much. And then he starts like stroking her hair in like this really creepy way,
right?
Like with the back of his hand, and I'm kind of going, "This is creepy."
Well, let's face it, though. I mean, he's a mental health doctor. All those guys are creepy.
I guess, yeah. It's kind of weird. So of course he leaves and he starts researching Klein-Levin syndrome, and friend gets out and kind of explains the history of Byron
Volp, I guess.
Byron Volp, yeah.
I heard it like 50 different ways during the movie.
Yeah, Byron Volp, and the way he tells it is basically like he was a rare book dealer. He had a rare book store, but he was also a mesmerist who apparently has an incredible affinity for being able to like mesmerize and hypnotize people with just his eyes.
Right.
And apparently his voice, which is why they have him gagged and he's got a hood on. It's because so he can't hypnotize anybody. Why in God's name you would want two things in this cell? A window where you could look into the patient, and B, a speaker where you can communicate in and out.
Well, both those make sense from a health standard, right? Because it's like if anything's wrong, you know,
yeah,
you have to be able to look in and make sure that everything's okay. But still,
but just to have like people wandering by,
yeah. Well, and that's my thing though. Is it's like it's smack dab in the middle of everything else, right? Like if anybody took a look at this place, they'd realize, okay, well, you probably shouldn't have the deadly criminal housed right next to all the other patients.
Right, exactly, and that's kind of explained a little bit, I guess. But we also get a glimpse at the Dreamverse. I call it the Dreamverse or the Dreamscape.
Right, sure.
That she basically lives in, and she kind of would kind of strike me as I don't know if you remember in Inception where they went when they were in Mombasa,
right?
And they saw the people who were under the machine, and they would like dream for 8 or 10 hours a day,
right?
And somebody's like the waking world to them as a dream.
I don't remember that at all, but I also wasn't a huge Inception fan.
Oh my God, you're fired.
I mean, I've brought this up several times, and I mean, I'm not going to really get into it, but it did not strike me as a huge film, you know, personally. It was like, yeah, I can see where it could have been, like, visually, it was a great film, but I just didn't get the hype.
I am officially disowning him.
I mean,
one of probably 100 times, and yeah, I'm sure this is going to happen 100 times in the future, but, so we get a look at the Dreamscape, and it's basically a flat world with really stormy, fast-moving clouds. It's got like hundreds of these like monolith type mirrors that just kind of spin around all over the place. It's almost like if you took in Hellraiser, if you've seen Hellraiser, right?
Of course I've seen Hellraiser.
If you take the hell realm of Leviathan and you stick like the monoliths from 2001 in there, it's kind of like the same kind of thing.
Oh, see, we have a problem though, because I haven't seen 2001.
Oh my god.
I'm fired again. I know what you're talking about at least.
Yeah, so and it keeps referencing back to the very center. There's like a hill with like a very like skinny square abandoned tower that's like kind of wrapped in dead trees.
Right.
And he tells her multiple times like that's the house of the Cloud Man.
Yeah.
Is it Cloud Man or Clouded Man?
I think it's Clouded.
Yeah, it's the house of the Clouded Man, and she needs to stay away from there. And I don't know, like I had mixed feelings about the Dreamscapes because I know it's kind of early CGI per se.
Well, here's the thing though, it's like you have to look at everything else that was out in 2008. This does not measure up.
It was an indie film, and I kind of tilted my head a little bit because the compositing was a little off. It was a little weird. You could tell she was in a green screen.
Yeah.
Just by the way she was moving. You know, she was supposed to be running, but you could kind of tell that it was in front of a green screen. There were a lot of like little creatures, like warped creatures that were like half CGI and kind of half puppetry.
Right. I've called them spider babies. Michael calls them goblin kids.
Okay. But by the same token, I kind of went, this kind of adds to this otherworldly dream though too. Like I'm not entirely sure, like I haven't had dreams that look like that. You know, I could have been like a technologically like limited kind of thing, but to me I was like, I could have a dream like this. Like things would be just off enough that I could believe that this would be, you know, a role that somebody was dreaming.
Sure.
We get several looks into her mind when she dreams, and it's pretty frightening. So in my mind, she leads a very frightening existence, right? Because she's like running around this dreamscape like.
We forgot the most important part about this whole film.
Okay.
The whole thing's a fucking flashback up until about 20 minutes before the end.
Okay, so I wasn't going to mention this till later because I actually didn't realize what was happening with this until...
I didn't realize till, like, my quote-unquote second viewing.
About 2/3 of the way of the movie, it keeps showing him, like, riding in a bus. And at one point I kind of thought, the guy's, like, driving a car. Like, why is he taking the bus, right?
Right.
And so it keeps having these flashes, and I don't realize the whole movie is like flash. It's like a flash forward of him riding the bus.
Well, I'd say it's a flashback just because it's like that's the very first scene, and then it dissolves back into the record shop, which is what cued me off because it does a bunch of black and white stuff to an apartment, and then the next black and white scene is the sustained stuff on Danny in the record shop, and then it dissolves in color.
Yeah, it was very confusing to me, and usually I can keep track of stuff, you know, pretty well. Sometimes like some of the older European stories will like confuse me, you know, because they don't follow the same kind of like
the same like narrative arc. Yeah, the
same like classical Hollywood structure, and so sometimes I get a little confused on what's going on. But this really confused me. Like I didn't pick up on it until like 2/3 that.
And this is my biggest problem with the movie is, well, not one of my biggest problems. It's one of those problems I have with the movie where it's all a flashback, but we're constantly being shown other people's perspectives, right? Like, right. I almost feel like it should be following exclusively Danny if it's supposed to be a flashback of his while he's on the bus.
I absolutely agree. I never really thought of it like that. But I do remember, you know, kind of seeing... Because it basically shows him, like, on the bus at some point with a gun.
Yeah. Like,
out of nowhere. And then it goes back to this other stuff, and I'm kind of going, what's happening here?
Well,
like,
see, usually I love that sort of stuff, where it's like it starts way in the future, and then it goes backwards. Like, I think, you know... Personally, that's what made the first episode of Breaking Bad so great. Is it starts off and you're immediately like, okay, what the fuck's going on here?
Yeah, and it's a trick that's used in TV a lot. Is, you know, what they call the flash forward, where it starts off in the future and then you build up to how you got there. Right?
Yeah, and I mean, I personally love that sort of storytelling.
It does like lend to its own tension. Yeah, because you see either you see the after effect or you see the standoff, and you're like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
And it works from there. Here, I was so confused as far as what was going on. There wasn't really any tension on that because I didn't realize it was happening.
Well, see, that's part of my problem also, though, is just bringing up tension. This film feels like it doesn't have any tension until about, you know, again, an hour 10 in.
Yeah.
Where shit starts kicking off. But otherwise, it's all like, okay, well, this very well could just be a drama, but not a very well executed one.
Yeah, it definitely, like, there's a certain point of the film in which it really kind of kicks into gear, I think, and then it becomes less of a thriller and more of a horror movie.
Well, and that's my thing, is it's like, if the whole movie could have been filmed that way, or at least carry that same sort of feeling, I probably would have liked it better.
But the term flashback is going to be confusing because we're already talking about being flashback. But
oh no, they flashback like 50 times. It is flashback galore.
He's laying in bed at night thinking about her, and he flashes back to a time in the black and white age. I don't know.
Which, by the way, nobody dreams in color, apparently.
I guess. Where it's him as a kid, and he goes to this house with his mom, who... This is one of those parts that we talked about just before I hit go, was I felt like the sound was a little muffled at some places. Like, the sound design was maybe not as sharp as it could be, because I didn't really understand what his mom was doing there. Was she a cosmetics saleswoman?
Yeah, she's a cosmetic sailor.
Okay, because she says Mrs. So-and-so, I'm Mrs. Sloan with, I thought she said so-and-so cosmetics, but it fades out like too soon.
Right.
It like fades out and it fades in music. The crossfade is like in a bad spot.
The crossfade in this is really bad at times. Like,
yeah, I was
super bad.
I was confused as to what she was doing there. But anyway, so he's sitting there and he sees the shadow or the form of a girl walk by, and he like gets up and goes upstairs. Here's the thing. When I was like, I don't know, what'd you say it was? Probably like 8, 10 maybe? There's no way in hell I'm getting up and walking through somebody's house. I don't care like if there's a girl or not.
Well, to be fair,
you know what I mean?
Personally, I mean, there's no way that my mom would have taken me on a cosmetics thing. I mean, I guess maybe that's just like she couldn't find a babysitter, but
yeah,
it seems like a bad idea, especially if you don't know how long you're going to be there for trying to sell this person on this thing. I don't know.
Right, and I was a little confused because that type of door-to-door sales kind of stuff I never really experienced a lot when I was a kid. And like I'm old, right? Like I'm twice your age.
Well, like
so,
even I mean I never experienced it myself either, and like my mom did the whole Avon thing, you know.
Right. So he goes upstairs and he sees this girl, and this girl's holding a teddy bear, which is important. And she reaches out and touches him, and then he reaches out and touches her back, and then she like passes out.
Yeah.
And the thing is I had to like go back and watch it a couple times because I'm like, there's no way that it's this girl.
Well, see, that's what confused me, because I was looking, I'm like, you know, this shouldn't make any sense.
But I am 90% positive that it flashes back to her in her bed at some point.
Yeah, because
in the hospital
as soon
bed,
as she collapses, it flashes back into her perspective next.
Right, and the nurse like puts, I want to say, the same teddy bear next to her.
Well, see, and that's my thing, is I also could have sworn, though, that the doctor had said that it was a automobile accident from when she was a kid. Or, like, not an automobile accident, but, like, an accident from back when she was, like, really young, like, infant age.
There's kind of this thing that Quentin Tarantino kind of calls movie convenience.
Right.
That he can't stand, you know, like, they were during the Hostel commentary, they were talking about how he kind of went over the script with Eli Roth and kind of was like, if there's movie convenience in here, I want it gone. Like, that. This was, like, 950% movie convenience. There's absolutely no reason why you
there's about
say,
50
like,
instances of movie convenience in this. Like, I mean, I'll point one of them out later, because it was really one of those moments where I'm like, what the fuck?
I don't remember, from my first viewing, I don't remember, like, this kind of subplot where he actually knew her.
Right.
But apparently she's supposed to be this girl that he met when he was, a little kid. And this brings him around to being in love with her.
Yeah.
He goes to his friend, he's like, I'm in love with her. And he's like, are you, like out of your mind?
Oh, well, doesn't he do that later, though? I didn't remember him doing that so early.
Yeah, I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit.
No big deal.
I'm like kind of following the
no, that's cool. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't miss him saying it once and then him saying it again, and the friend only just then freaking out about it. Yeah, no. The friend at one point kind of goes into the history of Volp. We were talking about this. Volp is a mesmerist. He ran a rare bookstore, and he was very adept at hypnotizing people, if you remember right. So the big deal with him is he hypnotized his girlfriend over the phone, right? This is the story that the girlfriend
friend
or
has
wife?
taken. Well, that's what I'm saying is the friend said it was his girlfriend. That he hypnotized his girlfriend. His girlfriend jumped from the roof of a building. So, you know, it's kind of rumorish, you know?
Yeah.
And then during the trial, he commanded the prosecutor to park his car on the metro rail, which resulted in like 27 people dying and like 100 and some people being...
Oh, I must have missed that.
...being injured. And so they kind of like get into this debate about, no, it's not. And his friend's like, remember this accident? He's like, yeah. And he's like, that's him. To which, again, I'm kind of going, why is this guy like in a psychiatric ward here where everybody can see him?
I guess one of the questions is, and this is what bugged me, is everybody just accepts that he's a hypnotist or a mesmer or whatever, and is capable of doing these things. Like, nobody questions it. It's like, I mean, you can't really prove that he did any of these things, so I don't know what the hell they picked him up on.
Right. Well, and the Detective Garrett, the Jeffrey Combs character, does kind of go, Bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, he's the only one who does any doubt because like his partner is completely 100% convinced about it, and that partner bugged the shit out of me throughout this whole movie.
So then this is the part that kind of got me, is his brother kind of goes, "Hey, did you check out Sleeping Beauty?" And he's like, "What?" And he's like, "Oh, this chick that's next to him who's asleep all the time, Sleeping Beauty." And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, I can tell you were in a room, blah blah blah. I'd like to see what you do to get a hold of her." And he's like, "Hey, you stay away from her." And I kind of went, "What? This guy just like get all protective of her ass, and he's met her like once, like." And his friend's just kind of going, "Okay, like whatever, you got it bad, buddy." And I'm kind of going, "Are you all insane?"
I mean, you've seen her once,
right, exactly. So then we get what I like to call in storytelling, we get the ticking clock.
Right.
It's a method in storytelling, like the bomb under the table, right?
Right.
The
or
bomb's due to go off, but he basically says, "He's all yours, buddy. Because you're the crazy one. But enjoy her for the next 2 days." And he's like, "Why?" And she's like, "Oh, she's getting scooped up, and they're taking her to this institute to become an experiment, like Frankenstein." And I'm like, "Okay, well, that's Frankenstein. I don't know."
Yeah, that's a really weird reference.
We're stretching a little bit, but okay.
But yeah.
So the ticking clock starts, right? He goes and visits her. Again, nobody stops him. And he goes in and he puts headphones on her and starts playing music, to which she kind of smiles, right? And it's like, aw.
So the music selection kind of bugged me, just because it's like he works at a record shop. He's like obsessed with these garage bands, but he chooses orchestral. It seemed like a really weird sort of character choice to me.
Maybe he just didn't want to freak her out with the garage band.
But here's my thing: is it's like, okay, so working off my original assumption that she was like this since she was an infant or whatever. I would freak out either way. I guess to be fair, I'd freak out if I was waking up and there was suddenly music.
Well, I would freak out there's something on my head.
Yeah, I get that, yeah.
Which I was fully waiting. I was waiting for her to wake up and go, "Oh my God, what's happening?"
That's what I was looking for. But she wakes up and she's like, "Oh yeah, this is such a beautiful thing," and oh my God, I love you. Which brings me to I guess if we're to accept the flashback thing, then I guess maybe does she recognize that it was the kid from when she was
Yeah. So when she wakes up, she looks at him and she has a flash. It shows the same flashback of her house when she was a kid, the same house that he flashes back to visiting when he was a kid.
Right. And
she looks at him and smiles, which I assume means that she recognizes him from when they were kids.
Or at least, like thinks that he looks like, the kid or something, like he's got some resemblance to it.
She recognizes him, but then all these people walk in and it ends up being the guys from the sleep lab or the sleep
institute
or whatever. Who's kind of like, well, what's going on here? Like, we don't know when she's going to go back to sleep. We need to start and get these readings immediately, and we need to blah, blah, blah. To which I kind of went, but you guys just said that you don't know when she wakes up and you don't know how long she's going to be awake. So how is it you happen to walk in right when she's awake?
I mean, it's very convenient. I wonder if maybe they've got some monitor on her to figure out then.
It's possible. Like, you would think maybe there would be some stuff kind of attached to her that maybe would monitor like alpha waves or whatever.
I mean, just because it's like, I think you would want to make sure while the patient's still, conscious that, hey, everything all right? Can we get you anything?
Sure.
Everything feeling good? Okay, good.
Sure. So they wake up or they come in to take readings and stuff, and he's like kind of challenging that. He's like, "You're gonna scare her," and she sees the giant needle and starts freaking out and doesn't want him to leave. And
personally, if I was one of those doctors, I'd be like, "Yeah, no, it's fine for you to stay near her while we do this, because I think it'd be a little hard to put a needle into somebody who's freaking out like that."
Sure, it's a big needle too, but so they kind of tell her that he needs to like leave, and so he goes. And my other note is then he goes home and he starts looking up this sleep study place and the doctor and everything else. And have you ever noticed, especially like back in the like middle to late 2000s, like how ridiculous the internet looked on film?
Here's my thing: is I noticed just how horrible that laptop looked. But here's the funny thing about the quote unquote internet on there is, I guess all the stuff is from like local file indexes.
Yes, if there's a shot where he goes to click a link, and if you look in the search bar, it actually says file://c:/mywebs, and then lists like a web page. Which means that he's basically clicking on links local to the computer and not actually on the internet.
Yeah, I think it was when he was looking into Volp.
Right. And so he goes and he looks up Volp. He looks up this doctor that's supposed to be taking her over and realizes that people have died in his sleep center.
Which brings a question of how the hell does he still have his medical license?
Good question. Because he kind of like there's a clip of like the news interviewing him, and he's like, "Look, it was a really bad like choice or a really bad mistake or something like that. We're really sorry."
Yeah, it was like the patient had some reaction to medications that that he was given, and they didn't know about the allergy that he had or something. And it's like, wow, they couldn't have predicted that. That still would have raised a couple questions about like how the facilities run.
Yeah, in this day and age, the outrage would have closed them down.
Possibly, yeah,
for sure. So he's got a mission because he doesn't want her to go to the sleep study place because it's an evil. This doctor's evil, right?
Yeah.
And so he goes back to the hospital with a backpack, goes into the bathroom, and like changes into doctor's garb. And the thing that made me laugh is he walks into the hallway with a doctor's coat on, like with a leather jacket draped over his shoulder.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe he's just one of those badass biker doctors.
Right. I don't know. No idea.
Look, if Dr. Ninja can continue to practice, I certainly hope that this guy can.
So he goes in and unhooks her, basically, to which I kind of thought later on, like, shouldn't she had like a catheter and all kinds of stuff set
she
up?
definitely should have.
And I kind of like, I was thinking like,
and then there's the feeding tubes and all that stuff that he probably shouldn't be messing with any of that.
The feeding tube basically goes down your nose, like down your throat into your stomach, pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's not really something like any average person should be yanking out of their
out
of their face.
There's a lot to fuck up there.
Yeah, so he gets her in there, like puts a blanket over, starts to leave, and he meets like the head of security, who is like, "What's going on here?" And
you would think that he'd be briefed on any patient transfers.
Right, he's like, "I'm from the whatever research place. We're transferring her."
And he's very slow about all this stuff. He's very he's not very quick on his feet.
He's very obviously making it up. But I'm kind of going, A, you don't have transfer papers. Like, even in 2008, you almost had to have transfer papers.
Yeah.
B, there's usually a team of people if you have an incapacitated state. Jesus Christ.
Incapacitated patient?
Yeah. You usually have a team of people that, like, does this. And there's all kinds of paperwork. And you don't do it in the middle of the night.
No.
And he stammers over this, basically, and the guard kind of goes, "Well, is everything okay? Do you need anything?" And it's like, what? And when I looked up his credit, I was like, he's head of security?
Yeah, like I said, security here is not very good.
Right. So Volp in the room next to there is like freaking out. So all the guards like go in and try to subdue him. And while they're doing that, he basically takes off with her.
Yeah.
Loads her in the car and takes off. She freaks out because she wakes up and she's in the middle of the car.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of like he says, "You've never been driving before." And it's like, yeah, she probably hasn't ever been driving before.
No.
And so she's freaking out, so he stops and he lets her out, and she realizes she's outside. She starts dragging her face along the grass, which was a funny scene. I don't know why.
I did kind of laugh, especially because you got an old couple like that are standing there like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, you have like an older couple like walking their dog, and they're kind of going, "What's going on?" And she's like dragging her face along the grass, because it's so amazing. And she picks up like a chew toy in her mouth and starts squeaking it.
And like picks up some sort of food or something off the ground. It looked like a Twinkie Trapper type thing, or...
Yeah, and like leaves.
Yeah.
He's like pulling the leaves out, and he's like, "Come on, let's go." And then she falls asleep. And he picks her up, and he's like, "Oh, it's probably your medication. She had pneumonia like a month ago."
See, like I said, he's very bad about making up any kind of excuse.
He's not light on his feet.
No.
So they get back in there, and she wakes up, and she definitely does the Mila Jovovich thing where she's like trying to speak.
Yeah,
she only knows
she's
a
all
few
like
words kind of thing.
Home.
Right. And then she just starts peeing all over the floor of the car.
Which brings us to, bit of a Zombievers callback where it's like, so, I mean, he had to clean that up, right? I mean, and that smell's not coming out of your car.
He had to have cleaned it up. And every other time, too, by the way.
Yeah.
So she pees all over the place. He gets her home, and he lays her down on the floor with her head on a bag and starts to, like, clean her up, with a nice wash rag.
Yeah, it gives her like a whole sponge bath type thing.
And the note I have for that is the music was very odd to me. It was very loving, like very like overly.
It was a very sexualized sponge bath.
And I'm kind of like, why is there this loving music going on? And he's like checking, like he's like pulled back her
that's
top
problem.
And like cleaning her off, and it's like she's unconscious.
He's getting really sexual with this girl who is asleep 99% of the time.
Is unconscious, right? And I'm kind of going, and she like wakes up, and he's like, "Oh," and she kind of smiles at him, and then the music swells, and I'm like, oh, okay, music's okay now because she woke up and she smiled.
See, that's my
it's
thing.
Okay.
Is I don't
it's
know,
consensual,
though,
and I'm just
well,
gonna
that's
go.
My thing, though, is it's like if she has a mental, sort of equivalent of a 5-year-old, I don't think that's quite all right.
Yeah, it was very like. For some reason, I don't feel like this is okay.
Yeah.
There was definitely like something like in the bottom of my mind that was feeling unsettled with this.
Yeah.
So he cleans her up. The detectives show up to basically file a report that she's missing.
Right.
To which we're introduced to Jeffrey Combs and his partner.
Yeah. Who are conveniently sitting in front of Volp's cell. Who
is Detective Conroy. Conray. I want to say
Conray, something like that. It's con something.
Yeah. Right. And so they're talking about, who, do you know who he is? Well, his name's faked, his address is faked, so that we can't use the sign in.
Where did they get they got it from the sign in then? Who did he sign in with?
Well, that's the problem, is you never actually see him sign in with everybody. In fact, he walks past like the administration desk every time he comes to this floor.
Yeah.
And there's nobody there.
Well, and it's like, they make a note of, they're like, well, clearly it's this art student, and,
right.
Oh, he's friends with the rehab dude.
Oh, he's fine.
So it's like, and you can't check the admission stuff from any time that he checked in to go visit the rehab dude?
Right, and so, exactly. So, then they get into, like, who's in the thing, and he's like, he's, I can't remember exactly now, but he basically says, he's like this scary dude, and they're like, okay, so he mentions his name Volp, and the partner Conroy says, "That's Byron Volp," and he's like, yeah. And so they get into it, like who he is.
Well,
like,
see,
he killed
that's
his
my
wife.
thing, though, is everybody knows Volp,
right?
Like, he's apparently a really big deal, which leads me to further believe that, it's all his dream, because it's like everything's focused around him.
Right. So he says, yeah, that's Volp. He killed his wife, so not his girlfriend. Et cetera, et cetera. And Combs' character, Dr. Garrett, says, hypnosis is bullshit. And it's like, just like that. It's like, wow. And so his partner says, hey, I was on that case.
Of course you were.
Of course you, yeah, exactly. Of course you were, because you're standing here. And I'm kind of going, if you're on this case and it was such a big deal and affected you so much, how could you not know that he was at this hospital and that wasn't him?
Oh, see, I hadn't even thought about that.
Most people who are involved in these big cases, they, you always like watch these shows on like history and, I don't know, A&E or whatever, forensic files. And they talk to some of these people that are on these cases like 10 or 15 years later, and they still remember everything.
Yeah.
And they've kind of followed it, these type of big cases. And this guy's just like, that's him? And it's like, oh my God, really?
I mean, I guess maybe he doesn't know, like, the actual cell number, I could believe that, but it's still, like, to not know that Volp is at that hospital, that strikes me as a bit weird.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a stretch for me. We kind of bounce back and forth between that, and now she's with him. It kind of becomes this little cutesy thing where she wakes up for little bits of time, and he tries to, like, show her the world, right?
Yeah, it becomes like a romantic, like, date type movie.
Yeah, he goes outside, he takes her to an ice cream place.
Which really annoyed me because her ice cream scoop suddenly smooths out on, like, one of the reverse shots.
Right.
And there's just a huge continuity error.
She, like, drops the ice cream and she's playing with it, because she's basically a kid, right? Even though, like, she...
Yeah, again, she's, like, 5 years old.
Right, in her mind. And so she smears the ice cream all over her face, and he's like, I'm gonna, like, go get a napkin. And he comes back and she's, like, conked out asleep.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just kind of like... It starts to bother me a little bit that she's waking up more and more frequently, at convenient times, kind of.
Yeah.
And then I kind of just, like, I wrote a note to myself that said, lighten up.
Well, it's like maybe it's not so much that it's happening frequently, but it's like this is supposed to take place over a couple weeks or something then.
I think so, but I kind of just wrote myself a note and said, if she never woke up, you wouldn't have a movie. Like, get over yourself.
I guess that's true. I mean, and if you took a lot of this movie that way, I guess it wouldn't be as bad, but there's a lot of plot convenience and, I don't know, just sort of unbelievable stuff that happens.
When she's asleep, Byron Volp is telepathically connected with her.
Which, okay, by the way, I've got this written down in my notes, and I want to bring this up.
Sure.
Fuck everything about this camera at times. Because, alright, you and I are both avid Minecraft players. Do you remember what happens when you eat, like, a mushroom or something?
Yeah.
And you get that nauseous effect? This camera does that about
nausea.
20 times this movie.
Sure. It's like a I don't remember what the lens is called, but you can like squeeze and unsqueeze it basically.
Yeah, and it's just like it happens so often that I was almost sick.
Yeah, there were kind of like crazy flashes of that.
Well, because like the one that I was thinking about is one that it goes to Volp and it like goes down the hallway with it, and then it goes on a Volp with it and everything, and it's like I think it's just before Jeffrey Combs is in front of the cell door, and it's just like this is sickening.
But so we learn that he's telepathically linked, and he keeps appearing to her in the mirrors in different like kind of blurry forms, and he's like, "Don't go to the house of the clouded man. I'll save you. I love you. I'll save you. We'll be together. Whatever, right?"
Yeah,
and I can't tell if she sees things telepathically. Like it kind of shows her like she's astral projecting.
Well, that's the thing is it almost feels like and I'm gonna spoil the end here, but the way that the film ends, it's like both of them in a whole dreamscape type thing. So I don't know if that's supposed to be her dream or his dream or them sharing a dream, but it almost feels like she's supposed to have some sort of like heightened ability.
I think so too. That along with Volp's ability seems to make them interconnected.
Well, and here's my problem with Volp, and I'm gonna add more stuff later to back this up. But Volp is apparently God and all powerful.
Sure.
Like at one point,
Makes
he
sense.
reads the guy's mind. Basically, he's able to put thoughts into somebody's mind. He's able to communicate or to have had this communication with what's her name. But we never once see him make eye contact or speak with her until the very end of the film.
Right.
Right. Like there's so much stuff that happens that it's like this shouldn't be able to happen.
Right.
Clearly, Volp is God, which backs up once again this is all Volp's dream.
It's an interesting concept, and I really hadn't thought about it, but we're definitely like covering more stuff that kind of backs that up, right?
Yeah.
We flash to like the morning time, and he sat her up in a chair, and she's like hunched over because she's asleep, and he keeps trying to smack her face or tap her face as she wakes up.
Yeah.
So he can feed her cornflakes. Folks, this is why there's a feeding tube in her nose, because she can't eat her own.
Well, that's the things I got written down. He didn't think this through very well. It's like
no,
he's not equipped to handle this at all. He doesn't have. He's incapable of putting in a catheter, clearly. So he's gonna have so many bathroom messes, like you wouldn't believe. He can't feed her. He's gonna be gone for most of the day because he's got work. So if she does wake up, there's nobody to attend to her.
Which actually happens.
Yeah.
So he kind of like sits the bowl next to her and says, "Well, when you wake up and you want this, like, here it is. I'll turn the TV on for you. I gotta go to work."
Oh god, and that TV, like,
yeah, right.
It was so poorly green screened in. Like you could tell that it was composited over.
Right. We meet his neighbor again that lives down the hall. Very nice looking girl.
Yeah, I guess she just got in for a rock video or something, or is gonna audition for the part of rock video.
Right. Definitely an aspiring actress, but she says, "Hey, I saw you bring home this really attractive girl. Like she's hot."
Oh yeah, this bit came out of nowhere.
And she's like, "Hey, do you want to share?" And he's kind of like,
"Yeah, let me know, like, and we can go party. I mean,
we
you
can
watch.
party, and yeah, you can watch, or we can all, blah blah blah." And he's kind of like, "I don't even know what to say."
To be fair, I wouldn't in that situation either. Like, let's face it, if I was posed with that question, my brain would short circuit and I would be probably dead. I think that would be the moment that I finally had a brain aneurysm. It's like suddenly life is too good.
So she says, "Yeah, I've got this audition, more tits and ass stuff," which is so meta.
Is it?
We'll find it is very meta. She was also somebody else that was in House on Haunted Hill.
Oh,
she was one of the. She's listed as Girl on Wires.
I don't remember
this, but she has to be like maybe one of the nurses or something that
I could believe that.
We see get killed. Yeah, so he leaves and goes off, and when he comes back home, he sees Sarah again, and she's really upset because somebody's broken into her place and stole some stuff.
And she immediately starts moving shit around. She's like, I can't wait for the police. I got to figure out what was stolen first. And it's like, whoa, that might be a bad idea.
Exactly. So he kind of has an inkling. So he goes home, doesn't see Laura anywhere, and she suddenly jumps out in a cheerleader's outfit and starts, which I actually thought this part was a little adorable.
It really was, yeah.
Myself, because she does in this cheer, and it's like, give me an H, give me an A, give me a C, give me a P, give me a something or other. What's that spell? And he goes, it doesn't spell anything. And she like gives him this big hug, and she says, "It spells home." And I'm like, aw, that's really kind of adorable.
Yeah.
She's been asleep most of her life. She's kind of learning how to talk better, I guess.
Educated through TV.
Lilu Multiplas.
Yeah. Corbin Dallas.
And, right. So she's obviously stolen her stuff. So kind of a weird deal. When she falls back asleep and like conks down, so he's got to lay her back down, right?
Right.
When she's dreaming, she sees like, now I want to call him Corbin Dallas.
Can we do that? I mean, it'd be a whole lot more memorable than Volp.
Yeah, Byron Volp. So she sees Volp again, and he's like, in the dream, like some weird like Pan's Labyrinth type thing grabs her. Well,
that's my other thing though. Is it's like I've got it listed as the tree monster, but that's my other thing is every time that she's in this dream sequence, it feels like it's just wasted potential. Where it's like you could have gone really like sort of fantastic Pan's Labyrinth type deal.
I would have liked to have seen more time in the Dreamscape. Actually.
Exactly. Well, that's my thing though. Is it feels like they're trying to split things in a really weird way, and I feel like it really detracted from the movie.
However you feel about William Malone's movies, and a lot of people don't care for them a whole lot, per se.
And I can see why. I mean, Fear.com wasn't fantastic.
Yeah, but there's one thing I can say about William Malone is he has some great visuals.
Yeah.
And the Dreamscape is amazing. But apparently by this tree Pan's Labyrinth thing, grabbing her and shaking her head, he's taking control of her.
Sure.
And next thing you know, Danny wakes up, and she's basically over him in the cheerleader outfit, covered in blood, and starts stabbing at him.
Covered in blood and looking very Exorcist. Like, I have a note on there where it's like, am I watching The Exorcist? Because it's like her hair's suddenly all like, sort of ratty, and she's very pale, you know.
And blood's coming out of her mouth.
And her voice changes. I don't know if you noticed that, where it's like, it's part her voice and kind of part Volp.
It does this a couple of times, actually.
Yeah, like every time that it feels like he's supposed to be controlling her, which, I mean, that itself felt like it could have been a subplot that they were trying to go for. Sort of a like, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 type thing.
Right.
But never really pans out.
So yeah, so he gets out of the way, and she just keeps stabbing the pillow, and then she just kind of grinds to a stop, like her winding bit in her back ran out.
Yeah, sort of like, you know, she's one of those wind up monkey type things, and it's like, okay, now I'm done.
So he takes the knife, and she flips around, and she says basically a poem that that Volp tells Danny earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
And like starts saying tick tick tick, which is his thing that he keeps saying. Yeah, so we find out that basically that she's killed Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah, who's now naked, which is why I say tits and ass thing.
Oh, I see what you're saying then, yeah. Although, here's the thing is, something about, first of all, that scene, just the body felt very plasticky.
It was very plasticky.
Whenever shown, especially the blood effect. It felt like, you know, it just didn't feel quite real. Second of all, it felt like it was very intricate, because they looked like they even went with the whole Glasgow smile type thing. And it feels like that would have taken time, and it doesn't feel like there would have been time to do that.
So he sees the body, and the neighbor's seen it, runs off, calls the cops, and of course the our detectives, show up to check it out.
They don't immediately connect the tick 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 thing until you know, like 5-10 seconds onto the scene where, you know, first Combs' character's like, oh no.
He's
you
like,
know, and then his partner comes in, and his partner. Okay, so first of all, Combs makes a comment about, you know, why is it always on Mondays? You know, can't they spread it out through the week? And then the partner comes in, and he's like, oh, well, because it's purgatory. You know, this is just our personal hell or something. I'm like, man, what is up with you? Like, I don't. You're all sort of like weirdly mystic, and what's up with that comment? And I don't understand you. You're an anomaly.
I think Malone's just trying to weave some commentary in.
I guess that's probably what it is, yeah.
But yeah, so on the wall in blood, tick, tick, tick is written. And the partner sees this as, you know, as a Byron Volp thing, to which, you know, Combs' character says, I just saw him, like when I got the call, I was at the hospital. You know, it's not him. And he's like, well, how do you know he couldn't have somebody do it? And he's kind of like, oh, come on.
Even though, you know, I guess if we're accepting the whole hypnotist thing, then I guess it would be reasonable to assume that, you know, maybe he could have hypnotized somebody. Especially if that's what he's being convicted for.
Right. So they split up, and they're talking. They get a list of people that live there, and they split up. And of course, the partner, Conroy, goes to Danny's apartment. Danny's trying to get her into bed and get her tied back up, right?
Oh, no, he's already got her tied up and everything, because that's where Mike writes down, tied to bed, kinky.
Right. Yeah, he's tied her up because he doesn't want her to go off again. And and this is a weird thing, too, because she wakes up for a second and realizes she's tied up.
And thinks that she's in like a hospital or something, right?
Is that what she says?
Yeah,
I thought she said husband.
No, she says hospital. And he's like, no, not hospital, home. And then she's like, did I do something wrong? And he responds with, oh, no, I did.
Right. Okay, perfect. Because I thought she said husband.
Oh, no, you were way
I played it a couple of times, and I don't think the audio was fantastic in this streaming copy I had. I had to play it back a couple times. I thought she said husband, and I'm like, why would somebody being tied up immediately make you think husband? I don't.
No, but here's the thing: is
weird.
every time, like when I was watching it, I was just thinking the whole time. It felt like just in some way that the camera was working, I guess, or the angle that was shot. It felt very Misery like.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like especially on the shots back onto our main character Danny. It was very Kathy Bates style. Like he kind of carried that look weirdly enough.
That's an excellent point. I never really noticed that. But the detective comes to his apartment and knocks on the door, and he lets him in, of course, because he can't ask him questions standing in the doorway, right? He wants to look around.
Well, to be fair, it's like now that he's been allowed in, anything that he sees, you know,
right?
If there's something suspicious, can be then used as evidence, or you know,
or
used
if he's
in a warrant, or exactly. Oh, you know what? With how mystical he is, I could believe it. He could be a vampire.
Right.
Where's this subplot? I could have watched this. That'd be great, you know, as if like for some reason she wakes up at night and then come to find out at night it's all vampires.
So here's my other question too, because you obviously picked this up a little bit better than me, or maybe it was my TV, maybe that was off. Does he see the ropes on the bed?
Okay, that was my next note, because he says, that's odd, and I don't see anything.
Does he, or did he say that's hot?
No, he says that's odd, and he kind of has this like questioning look on his face. But on the shot over his shoulder. First of all, from where he's standing, you wouldn't be able to see where we're looking. He'd see in the corner where there's clearly nothing.
Right.
But from what we can see, there's not even like a hint of rope or anything because the girl's out of bed. Bum bum bum.
Right, and which is funny because he shuts the door when he goes to answer the.
Yeah.
When he goes to answer the front door, he shuts the bedroom door. So the bedroom door is open, and he looks in, and he says, "I guess that's odd." Which I didn't. I'm like, what is he looking at? I don't understand. It doesn't matter.
No, Mike and I re-rolled that like 5 times. We couldn't see shit.
It doesn't really matter what he says.
Right.
Because there's a nice little thunk followed by some nice squishy sounds.
Yeah.
He gets stabbed in the back, and guess who comes around the corner?
It's our girl.
It's who I like to call Laura Volp.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of that, again, it's that Exorcist type thing where suddenly she's possessed by Volp.
She's like in what I call Volp mode.
Yeah.
Which, can I just say, is actually kind of good. She, like, kind of does a good Volp. She's
and that's the thing is, I almost, for a second, I'll admit, kind of believe that, she's been putting on this like, whole innocent girl act, and she's actually been a psycho killer the whole time.
A little bit.
I almost would have accepted that, actually, as a movie then.
She has, like, a pretty menacing look on her face, and I don't know, like, just her body language was kind of like, you know, that's kind of good. I like it.
Yeah, she's kind of got it.
So she flips around and slices up his gut, and to which he like has armfuls of intestines fall out. Basically.
Which I'll admit, badly enough, I turned to Michael at that scene. And I just kind of let out a "my baby."
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well, because I'll admit though, at first it looked like he was holding a baby instead of guts or some like big bulging mass, and then you realize later, oh, okay, that's supposed to be his intestines.
It was sweetbreads. So he falls on his face and dies, and he takes off and like leaves her.
Yeah, it just takes off down the fire escape.
Goes down the fire escape, like runs off.
He takes off down the fire escape, but make sure to pause at the windows to make sure that he's not getting spotted.
Right. And he runs off. He runs to Billy's house.
Right.
Or Billy's loft, I guess. I guess it's kind of a loft, right? It's like an artist loft.
It's a studio.
Where he's like grinding stuff. He's very much into like making like it's metal art. Like he makes contraptions and different types.
It's
of
very clock punk. I'll admit.
I liked it.
Yeah. No, I'll admit I kind of liked his art.
Laura, who's stumbling around in a shirt covered in blood with blood spatter on her face, is just walking around town, and everybody's just kind of looking at her like.
Well, she's walking around town, but nobody like really makes any note of her.
Yeah, they're just kind of like, oh, that's odd.
And this is about the time where I write in my notes, there's still 40 fucking minutes.
She goes into a department store and goes to the furniture section and like goes to sleep on a bed. To which, I don't know if you caught this or not, a woman who works in that department goes and gets the manager.
Yeah.
Do you know who the manager is?
I didn't catch the manager.
Manager is good old John Landis.
I don't know who that is.
John Landis did Twilight Zone. He did American Werewolf in London. He did Michael Jackson's Thriller video. You really don't know who John Landis is?
I don't.
Wow.
But you also have to remember, I'm face blind, I think. I'm not certain. I've yet to get a diagnosis, but I'm 90% certain that I can't tell faces. And I'm shit with names, so like I've got a double whammy against like any personal relationships.
He also did Blues Brothers. Do you know what that show is?
I don't.
For that movie?
I've heard of it. but
Holy
I've never given it a
shit,
shot.
kid. He was an executive producer on Sliders.
Okay, fair enough.
You've heard of Sliders, right?
Yeah, no, I've watched like all but the last season.
Okay. So it's John Landis, and he's basically like, you need to get this girl out of here. Like, get so-and-so from Sporting Goods. He'll know what to do. So we cut back to Billy's loft, and Danny's telling Billy about how she's killed everybody, but it's not her, it's Volp.
Here's my thing, right? Is this whole time, I feel like Danny's just line delivery was the worst. Like,
I can't argue with you on that.
It just feels like he's got no inflection in his voice, and he's very monotone, and, you know, it's like there's weird pauses, and I think this is where Mike meant when he said it's the room all over again.
Okay, that makes sense, because actually that scene, I did kind of go, something about the scene seems off, but I think you might have nailed it right there.
Because it's like, it's simultaneously, it has no inflection, kind of like Wizzo's rooftop scene, but at the same time, it's like, it's got this weird, somewhat just weird timing to all of his line deliveries, where it's like there's either a weird pause to it, or it comes in a little too quick, and it doesn't feel natural at all.
It was something, yeah. So he decides in order to save her, because now he admits he's in love with her, that he needs to kill Volp.
Right.
And so he leaves, and then he goes and buys a gun from what I assume is a homeless man. I don't know.
And this thing is, I'm not sure how he figured out where to buy guns from.
Like how do you know, like, to go to Billy on?
I guess that's my problem though. I don't know where to buy drugs. I wouldn't even know where to start with guns. But I mean, he's an art student, so he's probably all set anyways, right?
And this is the point where I realized, like, this whole thing was a flashback.
Yeah.
Because now he's riding on the bus to go to the hospital with a paper bag with a gun in it.
Yeah.
Which you see a couple of points earlier in the movie of him sitting in a bus, and then there's a scene where he opens the bag and looks in and
Here's
sees
the thing is, I hadn't realized from the first scene that was going to be a flashback, so I was thinking the whole time, so what's in that bag? And because it looks like a gun, and I'm like, and I would love it if it's a gun, or if the bag looks like a gun, but he pulls it out and it's got, like, I don't know, a banana in there or something, you know, like as he just got done with his shopping. And it would be great if it sort of like set that weird tone from the start. But no, it's just a gun and it's a flashback to this.
To basically go through stuff a little quicker, he goes to the hospital,
right,
again, where he's already been spotted, like, kidnapping somebody.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I guess I should say that it flashes to Laura very quickly, and they escort her out of the store, basically. Again, she's covered in blood.
Yeah, and nobody makes a note of it.
Yeah, they escort her out to the street and leave her. And there's this really creepy thing where a car drives up, and there's a dog in the back of the car.
And, like, there's this weird, like, kind of fat dude who's, like, smiling at her, which led me to believe that there was some weird, like, kind of rapey scene, because she's found underneath an overpass.
Right. So she turns around, and this guy's, like, grinning at her, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, is he connected to the car?
I don't think so.
And if that's the case, like, how'd they know to get her? Like, did somebody from the sporting goods, you know, was that guy, like, Slovakian, and he, like, calls somebody up, he says, "We have girl here. Come get her. Get elite hunting over here."
And then no. He abducts her, and next thing we know, we got Liam Neeson, and it's yet another Liam Neeson Taken film. You know, Looking at You, Run All Night, and what was the other one that he did that was also Taken, but not Taken?
Walking the Tombstones?
Yeah.
Or Walk Among Tombstones or something like that.
Liam Neeson, come on, man, you're being typecasted. You gotta get out of it.
Creepy, like, gray-haired guys grinning at her. Next thing you know, she's, like, up against a thing on an underpass, and the cops pull up. So, yeah, something creepy happened to her. I don't even want to think about it. Our hero shows up, sneaks around, gets to Volp's room. He gets in. How does he get into this room?
I don't know. Apparently there's no locks or anything on there.
Here's the problem. Here's the thing that also kills me. This is supposed to be the most dangerous man in the world, right?
Right.
And I'm not trying to be sexist when I say this, but a singular, meaning one female nurse, comes in at night with a tray of food and goes to feed him, and she lifts the hood up, opens the thingy, and her hand's just shaking. Like she's almost having a seizure holding this food, right?
Yeah, because I mean, she's scared out of her mind.
She's absolutely, because he's the scariest man in the world.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows him, right?
He's killed like dozens of people. The detective says earlier, like, they don't even know how many people he killed. They only found the people that he wanted them to find.
Right.
Scariest man in the world, and one nurse is bringing him his food. So she flips out and, like, drops all the food and runs away and leaves the door open.
See, here's my thing is that's why I didn't think that scene happened at night. I thought that happened just before he came in, because I didn't remember seeing him open a door.
No, that's the thing, is that's how the doors open.
Yeah.
So I guess it's not at night. I think you're right.
But it's still very convenient plot timing.
like, he walks in because the door's open, and he goes to shoot the guy, and the guy starts quoting him another poem or whatever.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go shoot a guy who's a known hypnotist, why do you let him talk?
Well, that's because you didn't even have to enter into the room. Oh, and by the way, going back to that female nurse, you're telling me they don't have a better way to feed him?
Than to feed him by hand?
Yeah.
Yeah, because what happens is, like, she scoops up, like, some corn or something in a spoon. She goes to get it up to which he's, like, sticking his tongue out through the hole, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
He's, like, flicking his tongue, and she, like, flips out. I'm just kind of going, like, this is how you do it? Are you kidding me?
He's a fucking dirty dude. Oh, and during that scene, he rips his mitten, which I guess explains what's gonna happen next, where he fucking clocks Danny in the face, because, you know, Danny is just completely incapable of pulling the trigger.
Right.
So I guess maybe he somehow got out of his restraints at that time. But here's the problem, right? And this leads further to Volp being God, is because then he clearly knew that Danny was coming to get him, and was prepared for that, because there's no way he could have known that it was Danny who walked into the room, and yet he had everything prepared for Danny.
Danny had keys. How did he get those?
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
He has some keys in his hand. And, so he clocks him, and, like, the head of security shows up and, like, pulls a gun on him and says, don't move, don't pick up that gun. And here's the other thing, dude, seriously. I'm going to say this a few times in the rest of this commentary. Who in their right goddamn mind is going to look that dude in the eyes?
Well, and that's the thing is, the security guard actually holds up his hand. He's like, don't look him in the eyes. And then, you know, the nurse comes by, you know, because clearly she can do something, looks him in the eyes. She walks off, grabs a scalpel, cuts the security guard's neck, you know.
Yes.
Right. Here's my thing.
Sure.
Several times during this, it's like every time he goes to hypnotize people, it's a really weird sort of scene, because it's like they've got this whole thing where they're like struggling against it, but not quite, and then you know it's always like got a couple of the same clips, like, you know, I think it's Volp's eyes, it's somebody's eyes like going like pure black and everything,
right?
And he reminds me
a lot of, and I was so happy to see that it was kind of like this. He reminds me a lot of, have you ever seen the silent film, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari?
I might have.
It's something that I saw, like, in my first semester of film school, and I absolutely love it. It's one of my...
Just fuck. Keep going.
Fuck yes. Are you kidding me? So I absolutely love it. It's a German expressionist film from the 1920s, and it's got this guy who's like a hypnotist who has a somnambulist. I know I'm not saying this right, but anyway, it's a guy who sleepwalks.
Okay.
A big giant guy named Caesar. Caesar?
Caesar.
Fuck.
We'll go with that.
We'll just call it that, because I'm American. Anyway, and like it has this very, like, the shapes and everything. It reminded me a lot of this, and actually he conceived the film when he was watching the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. So some of that stuff's on purpose, like, kind of harkens back to some of that German expressionism.
Right.
You know, because when you look at him, there's like these weird, like, shapes behind his head.
Yeah, it goes like all spiderwebby.
Yeah, and sometimes, like, you'll catch a flash of a face with, like, the spiral X-ray eyes.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So he hypnotizes the nurse. She kills him. He, like, does some... did he, like, use the force to throw Danny out of the room?
That was my thing, so I was trying to figure out. So did he just force push him or something? Because Danny goes tumbling over the cart and, like, slides into the wall and hits his head. And, again, Volp is God.
Right.
Volp walks up, pulls out, like, a printed piece of paper from Danny's jacket pocket that tells Volp that he had a old bookstore, I guess. Right. And then Volp also pulls out Danny's pocketbook to find out where his buddy Billy lives.
Right. And I kind of wrote down, like, 2008, people are still carrying around, like, pocketbooks with, like, like address books.
Because that thing is, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe. I guess smartphones weren't really big back then.
Oh, not at all. Like, I remember 2008. I totally believe, like, people carried pocketbooks. It's just such a stark thing in this day and age.
I guess
like,
so, yeah. Well, because that's the thing is when he pulled it out, I was like, what the hell is he pulling out? Oh, that's right. People used to have those.
Right. Exactly. So he
Could you
goes
imagine
off. But...
what position Volp would be in now, where he pulls out the phone? He's like, "Oh God, my thumbprint doesn't match. I don't know this guy's password. Shit." And who keeps their address in their iPhone's contacts? Because I definitely don't.
He just hold the button down and ask Siri.
And it's like, "Hey Siri, where's what's one of his friends' names?"
Yeah, where's my?
But then he kind of just zeroes in on Billy, like, immediately. I guess he's just like, God. "Oh yeah, Billy's a good name."
Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
Clearly. So Danny wakes up, and personally, this is where the film finally picks up, you know, an hour and 9 minutes in.
Yes.
Where it's suddenly like a nightmarish hellscape where the nurse has, like, killed all the doctors and, you know, is, like, draining Danny's blood for whatever reason. Right. And, you know, it's like...
This is like a scene directly out of House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah.
It looks. I mean, the way the lighting
Well,
is
to be fair,
flashing and
I don't know if you saw this, but apparently it uses the same stage as House on Haunted Hill.
I did see that.
Yeah.
But I mean, just the way it's shot, the sound, everything is like almost straight from House on Haunted Hill.
Right.
I liked it. It was so creepy.
Well, that's the thing.
Like,
That's when I finally got interested in the film. It was like, oh, okay, we're in hour 9, and finally I've got something that piques my interest.
I don't remember how he incapacitates the nurse.
You know, I can't either.
Electricity.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because she's zapping the doctor with like a cattle prod or something.
Right. He breaks a lamp or something and like shocks her.
Oh, that's
with
right.
the
Yeah,
socket
yeah.
or something.
Never mind. She was using a needle on the doctor, and he breaks the lamp
Right.
and shocks her with the whole
Right.
screw and filament thing. Yeah.
So he gets away and goes to.
But not before he looks in his pocket, finds the printed out piece of paper with Volp's store, has this look on his face like he realizes, oh yeah, that's right, Volp has a store. Or it's like it's suddenly
Right.
some new piece of information for him, and heads that way.
He kills like a doctor or somebody, and he gets like a note or something from the whoever he kills that says pick up the girls at the
Oh, see, I missed that because I was like, why the hell are we here?
Yeah, it's where he gets the car, and there's a thing that says pick them up at the recital.
Right.
And so it cuts to these two very well dressed girls who are like in Victorian
Yeah, they're in like
clothing.
sort of Victorian semi-gothic type dresses.
Right, and they play a piece, and but there's nobody there.
That's
so
the thing.
Really
So that's why I
don't-
realized that it was supposed to be a recital. It felt like it was supposed to be the two of them practicing in a very well sort of orchestrated room. Because it's like the chairs
Yes.
are perfectly positioned, and it's very like showman-like. But then they're like, oh, I'm gonna go see if our ride's finally here. So one walks out, gets abducted by Volp. The other one walks out, and then Volp mesmerizes both of them to go into his car. Like
they're tied up and they're gagged.
Here's the whole thing: is that whole scene? I'm like, what is the fucking point to this? Why is this happening? There's no reason for this at all.
He's powerful.
It's like 10-15 minutes that doesn't need to be here.
So one of the girls, the celloist, is Alison Brie.
Yeah, I thought so. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I completely noticed it during the down blouse scene, where I'm like, oh, you know what? That looks very familiar. Oh, yeah, that's Alison Brie.
From Community, Mad Men, BoJack, which has just been renewed for a second season.
Yep, I didn't know she was in Mad Men or BoJack though.
Yep. So yeah, and the other girl is Catherine Carlsberg, but I didn't. She's not really in anything else.
I was about to say, I don't even know who the hell that is.
Yeah, Alison Brie stuck out to me. So our hero goes to the bookstore, breaks into kicks in the a basement window and crawls in the basement, which I'm like, some time has passed since this guy was like caught and imprisoned. Why is all of his stuff still there?
My question is, why hasn't anybody else broken in and graffitied the hell out of the place? Because that's
boarded up.
Well,
the front is all boarded up and stuff.
He was such a bad killer type dude, right? And that always leads to notoriety. And it's like, I can't remember who it was, but there's been at least 1-2 killers that they had to bury them in unmarked graves to prevent people from defiling them.
Right?
It's like, how has this place not become a sort of urban legend type area?
Who was it? Dahmer that lived in Milwaukee that they tore down his whole apartment building?
Yeah, see, I mean, it's stuff like
and
that.
Stuff
where it's
like that, but
it
yeah,
wasn't a reasonable response to this.
Right, so he gets in and he looks and there's all kinds of old books and it's all covers really old timey sideshow type stuff.
Yeah, because he's got a clock in the back area that
Oh, you saw the clock?
Yeah,
it's some weird cuckoo clock type thing that's got a face from one of those old machines that would tell your fortune.
Yeah.
And when it hits the time and it goes cuckoo, why is it though? Because it's been sitting there for years.
I thought that it was supposed to be because he had touched it. I thought that he manipulated something on it or whatever.
I don't know, but the eyes open up and they're the swirly X-ray vision hypnotizing
right,
stuff.
And the mouth opens, another card pops up, and it's like, "When will you die?" And it's like, sometime
it's like
soon.
how much time? Yeah, how much time do you have left to live, or something? And then it's like, not soon.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, that's creepy.
So he proceeds further into the bookstore, and
sure.
he turns and winds up looking at a painting at some point, and notices that there's a weird watermark. Yeah, a poster. That's what I meant. Goes and pulls the poster down, expecting to find something back there. I guess because he freaks out when he pulls it down.
Yeah.
Notices that the wall behind there's kind of rotted and very loose. So he starts poking at it, and, eventually kicks the wall in and pulls out all the stuff. And there's a body there, which leads to a jump scare of was that a rat? Because it looked more like a ferret.
Some crazy,
I
think it was a rat, but it was a demonic rat because it jumps on the window or jumps on something as and slinks off.
And
I don't know.
Then
it's like the dog from Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Yeah, and then we get Jeffrey Combs' character, who's apparently at the same bookstore for whatever reason. See,
Yeah.
this is what I was talking about with the movie convenience stuff. Like, this is
Right.
movie convenience at its maximum because you need to get these two characters to meet. Why not? We'll have Combs suddenly going to the bookstore.
I think you put it together like Combs' escape.
I
He's
guess
probably
that could have
going
been
back to
it.
the
Yeah,
bookstore.
is
That's
it's
kind
like
of how
Volp
I thought
escape,
about
so
it.
I'll go to the bookstore because that might be where he's heading. But I
And
don't know.
he's very upset because his buddy's been killed.
Yeah, but he immediately jumps to the assumption that Danny's in cahoots with Volp.
And let him out.
Yeah.
He's like, you're working with him, you let him out. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, really?
Yeah.
So then Danny spills the beans and says, look, Volp is getting Laura to kill people. Like, I have to save her. And he kind of almost looks like he's like kind of starting to buy it a little bit.
Yeah, just a little.
You know, he's at least like listening a little bit. And then the phone rings.
Yeah.
And why is the phone ringing after all these years? Why is the phone still on? Who's
That's
paying that bill?
That's a good question. Well, maybe Volp like mesmerized somebody before he went in to take care of the
somebody at the switchboard.
He thought of everything. He's like, oh my god, I gotta take care of my phone and my electricity bills. Okay, who can I mesmerize? You know what, doctor, get over here. You seem like you got money.
Let me mesmerize you so you can like pay my bills for me.
You know what? That's the thing is, why does he even need to kill people? He's got it made. He's like, you know what? I don't want to pay my bills. Hey, landlord dude, the bills you take care of now.
So the detective picks up the phone and he gets hypnotized. He's like, I know your secret. And by the
Well,
way,
see,
he does have a very soothing voice.
That's where it felt like he was almost reading the character's mind or putting thoughts into his brain. I didn't know which it was, but either way, again, this is stuff that Volp hasn't really been alluded to being able to do.
Right.
But suddenly he's capable of doing it. Hence, Volp is God.
The detective falls under his spell and basically says, come on, it's time, we gotta go.
Yeah.
So he drives to Billy's apartment and knocks on the door. Billy opens the door, and Billy like has this weird like 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah. He clearly is under duress.
Right, and he like nods his head I made this note. I can't find it now, but I know I made it. I like make this note, and I'm like, oh my god, like he hypnotized everybody. Like Billy's in on it.
Yes, yeah, I honestly almost did think that Billy could have been hypnotized, but you know, the main characters walk in. Door closed, and there's Volp. Oh, and he's punched a hole in the back of Billy's skull and is manipulating him through there like he's a puppet.
Like a puppet.
Yeah.
And he just drops him down. He's like, which Billy and I would have been good friends.
It's a kind of a great sort of metaphor type deal because it's like, this whole mesmerizing thing is kind of like a ventriloquist, with all these sort of dummies. I don't know.
He brings him in, and he mentions to the detective something about something happened to a little girl.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming something happened to a little girl when he was a kid.
Yeah, that's the same sort of thing that I got. It was like some sort of accident back when he was a kid. The girl probably...
Right.
I felt like she probably got hurt or died, most likely.
It sounded like she died.
Yeah, and, he covered it up or something, or just, didn't tell anybody how it happened.
Right, because he tells the detective, he's like, I talked to your mom. And he's like, what did my mom say? Which was kind of cute.
Yeah.
And he's like, she knows what happened to so-and-so.
See, which almost makes it feel then that it's, like he's putting thoughts into the guy's mind, but
right,
the way that the detective responds, it almost still feels like it's stuff that actually happened. I don't know.
She knows what happened to this girl, and her mom knows too. And I know you were just playing, and blah blah blah. So it kind of sounded like there was an accident and a girl got killed, and it was covered up.
Yeah.
And that's his secret that he keeps saying, like, I know your secret.
Oh, he's got a really neat comment during this though, where he's like, I know what you do when you go home at night, and I know your dreams. Which, again, Volp reading his mind or something, because that's what it feels like still.
Maybe he can astral project, too. He can go into people's dreams. Maybe that's how he gets into her dreams.
At this point, I'd already gone to Wikipedia, because I was like, how much more could be going on this film? And I already find out what's going to happen to Jeffrey Combs, and that's what led me to be like, so maybe, his thing that he does when he goes home is he just, kind of hangs himself and jacks off. It's like, maybe that's his dark secret.
Oh
that's what he does at home. That's his dreams. Because...
Wow.
He later winds up just playing Russian roulette until he finally gets shot. So it's like, is that...
So Danny says to him, like, why don't you just, like, hypnotize me? Why don't you just kill me? And he says, all she'll think about her whole life, like in her dreams and everything, is you.
Which
like,
that was a question that I posed by this point, I was like, so why haven't you just killed him? Because it'd be so much easier.
Right. And he says, if I kill you, that's all she'll think about. And I wrote down, I said, so this guy's now become Mulder.
Well, here's another question, though.
Like, that's a big thing in the X-Files. They're like, why don't you just kill Mulder? And he's like, because then you'll turn him into a martyr and everybody will be obsessed. It's the same kind of thing.
Well, because here's the thing, okay? So he's all-powerful, basically. So he could very well just get away with killing the main character and then just, mesmerizing the girl into having not thought he existed. Like, because he's come out throughout this whole film as all-powerful. Like, nobody's been able to resist his his hypnotist gaze, you know.
Right.
There's been nobody who's been able to fight back against him, really. So it's like by this point they haven't put any constraints on him, and that was another one of my problems with the film is there's no constraints on what Volp can do.
He's like at a Night Watch.
Well, it sort of feels like
Night Watch or Day
you know
Watch.
when you're a kid and you're playing
powers.
pretend, you've always got that jackass kid who's like, oh, and by the way, now I can suddenly do this.
Right. Well, I just shot you. Well, you can't shoot me because I just pulled up a magic.
You can't shoot me because I've got magical bullet deflecting plate mail.
So he says, "Why are you doing this to her?" And he says, "She's the most purest thing in the world, and I'm the most corrupt." So it just makes sense. So Billy,
although he later makes a note of, I remember this piece of dialogue where he's like, "I've had her time and time again in her dreams," and it's like, "Well, you've been really kind of rapey here, Volp. Tone it down a little bit."
So, well, apparently that's why she's okay that he's seeing her naked is because she's grown up in her dreams. Apparently,
I guess so.
Like he's shown her the way, right?
I don't get how that would happen because it's like you don't have any actual outside interaction. You know, there's nothing to build off of.
So this leads to my favorite part of the film.
Right. This was one of the really good parts, but also like a point where I was asking why.
So Danny wakes up. He's tied to a chair. He's in the loft or studio. And Volp has set it up to be like this giant sideshow thing.
Yeah, it's a very like showpiecey type deal.
Yeah, the girls have these black goggles on and they're playing music. There's all these things that have been turned into like ticket taker looking thing and like these automatrons.
Yeah, which to be fair was already part of Billy's thing. They show like poster for or a flyer or something for his event coming soon. That was all about the power of the automaton or something.
Right, and so these things are like there's like what are those called, accordions that are all wired up on gears and stuff, and like brass sections that are like wired up, and all of these like mannequins are pulling these things and all this crazy,
it's a very like
amazing
theatrical
shit
type thing, which is what kind of bugged me though, because it's like, what's the point, right?
At that point, I didn't care. It just looked badass.
It looked badass, but again, I was just, to be fair, at this point, I was already made up. I'm like, I don't like this.
That was my favorite part. I just thought it looked so cool. I was like, I absolutely loved it. And the detective is in the corner playing Russian roulette with himself. Click. And then he's spinning his thing. Click.
Which Mike made a weird comment, because I guess he didn't realize that he was playing Russian roulette. He's like, spinning that bullet doesn't do anything. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he's like, spinning the bullet and then moving the cylinder back into the chamber. It doesn't put the bullet in the chamber. I'm like, Michael,
no, he spins the chamber.
He's supposed to be playing Russian roulette, and he's like, oh. I'm like, What did you think he was doing? I guess he thought that apparently he was trying to load the bullet into the gun to shoot somebody, but I don't know what the fuck that was.
Aw, Mikey is precious. So Combs is playing Russian roulette, and one of my favorite bits of the film is Danny tries to get away, and he's like, "Don't do that." He's like, embrace your fate, embrace life, and he like licks up the side of his face.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck is
wrong
with you?
And the look on Danny's face was the best thing in the whole film, where he's just like, what the fuck are you doing?
I wonder if that was improv then, because it's like the most emotion that we've got out of Danny this whole film.
If it was the most brilliant thing that Combs have done, or not Combs, Kilpatrick did. He just like licked up his face.
And I gotta admit, honestly, Kilpatrick was, I think, the most convincing actor in this whole movie.
He was awesome.
Like, everybody else felt really dead, but like Volp, I felt nailed whatever he was going for, where it's like he felt very dark and menacing.
Right. So he's got Laura in a coffin, dressed in with all these flowers and these peacock feathers. Were they peacock feathers? They look like
they look like peacock feathers or something. Well, because it was supposed to be like a whole angel's wings type thing when you see the full piece.
Yeah, I kind of attributed to his like Sleeping Beauty again. How Sleeping Beauty is like in the thing with like the single rose.
Right.
It's been a really long time since I've seen Sleeping Beauty.
I know what you're talking about though.
I kind of got that sense, but so he makes her rise basically.
Yeah.
And when she rises, these the peacock things turn into these wings, which he's actually like inserted into her.
Yeah, he's sewn into her shoulder blades.
Which again,
and lower back,
if you like love her, why would you?
Here's the thing: is it feels again very like theatrical, like he's trying to set up something of a play for an audience that's not really there. Because like you look at all the positioning of stuff and everything, and it's all pointed in a direction towards Danny.
Well, and he's supposed to be this big mesmerist, right? I kind of feel like he's obsessed with that sideshow kind of
right. Like he's
thing.
I get that because it's like you look at his like the hypnotist wheel thing in there, and it plays a very like sideshowy type tune.
Like Danny gets away, but again, Why in God's name would anybody look into this guy's eyes?
Oh, here's the thing. Danny gets away. When the fuck did Danny become an escape artist? Because he slips out of those handcuffs like it's nothing. Suddenly breaks the rope binding.
To be fair, it did take him 10 minutes to do it.
Yeah, but here's the thing: you would think, okay, I'm out of the handcuffs, and now I've got to work on the rope binding. No, he bursts out like he's Hulk.
He's like, whoop!
And he's out.
And so he looks at Volp, who hypnotizes him, drops him to his knees. He wakes up, because apparently he has this power over her, too. He wakes her up, and then he starts mouthing the words to him, and basically is, like, making him say, "You're nothing to me."
Which, by the way, at that pace, I wouldn't believe it.
He's like, you're a toy. Like, the reason I took you out is because you're easy. You're nothing. You're nothing to me. And basically what he's trying to do is make her hate him so that she doesn't think about him anymore is the deal. But,
yeah. Wikipedia said that he was supposed to be denouncing his love for her.
So during this, we're reminded that Jeffrey Combs is playing Russian roulette and the gun actually goes off.
Yeah.
Which snaps everybody out of it, right?
Yeah, for whatever reason.
Well, it makes sense, right? Because it's a big loud bang and it snaps you out of a trance.
But here's the thing, is it's like, I don't know, all the other noise that's been going on, I get that a gunshot's loud, but like there's been several times throughout the movie where there's been loud noises and nobody's given a shit.
So she like pulls the feathers out of her back or her side or whatever.
Yeah. And
like jabs them into his throat.
Yeah.
Like up, like where his, like underneath his jaw, basically up into his head.
Up into I mean, you're a French fan. I guess the soft palate. I was trying to figure out the angle of it.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, so was that?
I love Fringe. Like falls over. And so he says to Danny, like, I'm going to get out of this. Like, I'll get better. I'll make sure, he says, I'll make sure that she's in the room next to me, just like I did last time.
Yeah, which is kind of a weird statement, because that's the thing then. It's like, okay, so he must mesmerize somebody to convince him to put him in a padded cell that's conveniently right next to her place. And,
right.
I guess this has happened before. I don't know why he was stopped last time.
Which begs the question of, like, so when did he make contact with her? When did he realize she was there?
Right, which is almost where I would then believe then that, okay, maybe he looked into her eyes at some other point, but it's still so convenient.
It really is. She turns around, or he turns around and whacks him with a...
it felt like just a poster tube, honestly.
Like, it was but it was a pipe.
It was supposed to be a pipe, but if you look at the way it, like, bends and everything, it's clearly like a poster tube.
So he whacks him, and he kind of laughs at him and says, is that all? Like, and he kind of talks about whatever, and she pops up with 2 screwdrivers.
And, like, plunges those into her eyes.
Around and shabs him into his eyes, which is the best thing, and she's like, no, it's not going to happen, blah, blah, blah. And so she stabs him, and she gets up and starts to leave, and then she falls asleep after she gets up, right? So he grabs her.
Right.
And he starts taking her out, and the detective shows up.
Oh, but before he does that, Volp rises up to make to tell everybody that you haven't seen the last of him, basically.
Oh, is that what he says?
Yeah, he says something like,
okay.
But I will return. We're not done yet, or something along those lines, yeah.
And so when they get to the front door, the detective shows up. You find out that he shot himself in the face.
Yeah, so he's got, like, half his cheek missing.
Right, which is great looking. They struggle, and he shoots Danny in the temple.
Where did you get the bullets? I didn't know if that was shown. That was kind of one of those things I was wondering.
No, it didn't show him.
Okay, so he just
and then he just falls over like he's dead, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know. And so she like curls up with him and says, don't leave me. We'll just dream. Let's just dream. Let's not leave. Let's stay here and just dream forever.
Yeah.
And the cops bust in and see her and everything else. And then you kind of go to, she kind of tells them, like, the cops are here, we have to leave. So they get up, obviously in the dreamscape.
Yeah.
And open the door, and he says, wow, it's a really lovely day. And you go to the original doctor, the creepy doctor.
Yeah.
And the buddy from...
Yeah, Phil from before, who's been ignored for the most part from now.
Right,
by the way,
from the
record store.
store.
His eyes, because I noticed this from the first scene. It was
he has a lazy eye.
Yeah.
He has a lazy eye.
Thing that I had to wonder at for a while.
I called him Lazy Eye Record Buff.
And I feel bad for making fun of it, but it was a thing where it's like looking at it on camera. It's really distracting.
It's just how I remembered him. Nothing wrong with Lazy Eye.
No, it's just distracting.
So you cut to that, and you find out that it's the doctor telling this friend what happened. And so the friend says, like, where is she or what happened to her or whatever. And he just says, it's better if I show you. I'm not sure why, but okay.
Yeah.
So they go down into the morgue. And he's like, why is she in the morgue? And he's like, that's why there's no prying eyes. And it's like, well, you just led somebody in there, so they know that she's there. So there's this big, like, H.R. Geiger looking black, like, tube.
Yeah.
Or capsule. And he says she's in there, and he's like, he's with her. And she's like, well, what if she wakes up? And he's like, well, she hasn't woken up since that night. Maybe she doesn't want to wake up. And he's like, well, what about him? And he's like, well, he's in a coma. I don't think he can wake up.
Yeah.
So he goes, so he flips on the light and he says, can you just leave me for a few minutes? And he walks off, and the friends to finish up the only lingering subplot, has the record from the bossman that he promised him he'd play him. And he puts it on and plays it and sits there, and then you see that they're both in the tube, submerged in water, naked, living happy ever after.
Yeah. In, I guess, her dreamscape that she shares with him.
Right.
Because they go walking down the staircase as kids.
As kids, in the old house.
Yeah.
And she says, it really is a nice day. And they, like, walk out together. But the only thing, my problem is so he's like, okay, so why are they in here? Because I'm like, is this a Bacta tank from Star Wars?
It definitely feels like, because he's like, oh, it's a new treatment.
Right, and he says there's no bed sores because they're suspended in the water, blah, blah, blah. But you look at it, and they're not secured at all in this thing. So her arm is just, like, flipping up and around.
Yeah, it's floating.
And they're, like, kind of doing the breaststroke or the backstroke. And I'm just kind of like, what happens when they get tangled up in all these tubes that they're breathing through?
Oh, I didn't even thought about that. Oh, I want that epilogue where it's like, oh, shit, damn it, she pulled down my tank. Oh, no. Oh, no.
So that's the end of the story. Like, they live happily ever after, pretty much, in their dreamscape as children.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts? We've
I've
actually gone again the same amount of. We got to figure out how to do this. So
next time we might just have to do like a guilty movie pleasures. Like, okay, we got 5 minutes to summarize the plot.
I kind of thought about that a little bit. So next week we're doing. Next week will be our fourth.
Oh my god! Though our next one's supposed to be Cabin in the Woods, and that's gonna be
Cabin in the Woods. Because we decided every month, so every 4 weeks we're gonna do a special that's like one of our we're just gonna talk about one of our favorite movies as opposed to one that's kind of lesser known.
Cabin in the Woods, or I think we've got Ichi the Killer on there somewhere.
Evil Dead at some point.
I want to say that maybe we have Bonleo 13, or I've got that as a special somewhere along the line.
We have it as a special.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have it as a special.
There's a couple of them that are really neat on there.
So
I did have one more note on here.
Oh, absolutely.
About the dude's friend Billy. Billy's kind of got a fucked up worldview. Like at one point he's talking about how
he's definitely unhinged.
Ugly people have got it so good because they can just coast through life.
Right.
He makes
the beautiful people and the smart people that stand out, and so everybody pays attention.
He makes one note later on about how the sleeping girl is one of the best possible girlfriends because girls are mostly decorative anyways. Right. And when I heard that, I think I was drinking something at the moment or something, but I spit everything everywhere, and I'm like, what the fuck did he just say? Like,
he definitely has like a jaded view on women because he always kind of says like when he says like the girl did it, and he's like, oh well, they'll believe that because it's a woman.
Yeah, he says like women are always the craziest story always has a woman.
Right. Yeah. He's definitely he's a little unhinged.
Well,
he maybe was in the psychiatric ward not only because of drug rehab. I think.
Well, he's especially unhinged because, and Mike makes a note of this. I did too, because at one point when he first gets out of rehab, Danny's making him breakfast, and it's like oatmeal or porridge or something, and he makes a bowl
isn't
for
it
him.
ramen?
I don't think so.
It looks like ramen.
It could have been. He makes him some sort of food, and they both go to eat it, and he pours in what looks like Dr. Pepper.
I think it's beer.
Well, I'm saying based off the logo. To have I guess maybe they didn't have like Dr. Pepper Zero back then or whatever the hell they call it, where it's like the white label. Diet Dr. Pepper, that's what I'm thinking of. But it's like Mike writes down Dr. Pepper plus strange food equals death porridge. Also, I'm just gonna read off some highlights here.
Sure.
Serial killers of expert control of their mouths.
What the hell?
I think he meant to
These are all Mike's notes?
Yeah, I think he meant to spell opera, but he has Oprah music plays when she wakes up.
Yeah. Yeah, the music was a little overpowering at times and a little odd. I would like to point out that some of the William Malone had a garage band in high school.
Yeah, which is why it makes sense for like Phil to, it's kind of like his like, oh hey, this was me.
Yeah, one of the songs is actually the garage band from the 60s.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. I'm
not sure which one it
is. I guess what his old band was called or something, and it plays throughout the film, I guess.
Okay, yeah, so that's kind of like one of the, kind of like how Lucas is always putting racing stuff in because he's a car buff.
Yeah.
William Malone put in band stuff because he used to have a garage band.
Let's see. Photo that the police took of the killer looked like the Joker on Happy Pills.
Oh my god! So
Yeah,
he's looking online and he sees a picture of this guy, and he's got like one of those blur faces.
Yeah, it's a blurry like mugshot thing where I honestly thought that it was supposed to be a gif of the guy like shaking his head really quickly, like very House on Haunted Hill style.
What band is it that does that? Is it Pussifer?
It could have been.
Somebody like has a thing where they're all like it was like a long exposure and they all shook their heads, but like the middles are like there, so you can see like their lips and stuff.
Right.
This is kind of the same thing, or like the old video game Manhunt.
Right.
Remember how it had like the weird cover on it with the guy?
Yeah,
with
both
the big
Manhunt
eyeballs?
1 and 2 both had like the really weird like blurred cover.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It was creepy. Like I dug it just because I was like, wow, that's a creepy.
Yeah, he makes a note that Danny treats her like a pet at some point.
Oh yeah,
which I guess kind of makes sense.
I can kind of see that. Yeah.
Let's see. He makes a point, and I meant to bring this up, and we get dun 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 another flashback, and like that happened a lot. I want to bring up the fact that apparently they are in love with dissolves because there's about 400 dissolves in the fucking movie. If there's a transition, it's a dissolve.
There was definitely a lot of flash forwards and flashbacks and kind of dissolves and kind of messing around with the time, and I don't know, it confused me.
He's got a reminder, bitch be crazy. And then of course he makes a note, and you and I both talked about this earlier before the podcast. He makes a note of it's the room all over again.
Right.
And it's like I definitely get that from some of the dialogue where it's like nobody shows emotion.
Couple of scenes.
And yeah, that's pretty much it. He wrote like not even a half page, and it's all separated by slashes. There's no lines.
Right.
It's kind of a mess to read through. I might have to post a picture to Twitter.
That's awesome. You should definitely do that.
All right.
Yeah, so that's Parasomnia.
I mean, here's the thing: is I suggest that people at least, if you haven't watched it, watch it once. Just to experience it. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't, but it's something that's at least worth watching.
It's definitely one I think people should at least see once. It's not one of those that's like just like stay away from it.
It's not one of those.
It's not something you could probably have multiple viewings, but you should at least see it once just to kind of see for yourself.
Well, and it's not even one of those ones that's like this is gonna be a like a cinema classic, by any means.
Right.
But it's worth at least taking a look at.
Definitely check it out. During this week, definitely go out, and if you haven't seen it yet, check out Cabin in the Woods, because we are going to be talking about that next week. Probably won't do a scene by scene like we usually do. We'll probably just spend like a half hour or so talking about all the great stuff in it. Half hour, 45 minutes. I was about to say,
you say half hour, 45 minutes. I say it's going to be like a probably 3-hour special.
We'll see.
Look, if movies that we've only seen once, or I guess twice, become as long as these ones have. I have seen
Cabin in the Woods probably like 24 times.
Oh man, just wait till we get to Botched, man. I've seen that way too many times.
This week's DVD commentary. Each week I'd like to suggest a commentary that you should either check out or stay the hell away from. This week's commentary is going to be Shaun of the Dead.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Shaun of the Dead is absolutely one of my favorite movies. If you've seen it and you love it, get it on DVD, get it on Blu-ray, watch the commentary of it. It's all of the stars together, who are some of the funniest people in the world, by the way, who sit down and just chat about the movie as they go. I laugh so hard, not only during the movie, but like the commentary is absolutely amazing in it. I think we've watched the commentary for Shaun of the Dead actually together one night.
Yeah, definitely. And next time I come up to visit you, I'm gonna have to make you listen to the Hot Fuzz one, because there's 3 of them.
Okay.
Because I haven't listened to any of them yet, but they sound like they'd be pretty interesting.
We will do that. So yeah, definitely when you've got some time, check out Shaun of the Dead's DVD commentary. It is amazing. There's also a second commentary track. I love DVDs, by the way, that have multiple commentary tracks.
Yeah. It's why Hostel is one of my favorites, is just because all 3 of those commentary tracks are completely solid.
Yep. Eli Roth is notorious for doing 3 or 4 commentary tracks on each of his movies.
Oh my god, you need to listen to the Ruby one, because there's 2 commentary tracks and both of them are fucking fantastic.
I want to. So yeah, there's 2. The second commentary track is writer-director Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg together talking about it. Which they're both very funny individuals, but definitely check out the cast commentary of Dawn of the Dead this week. Anything else, bud?
No, I'm just trying to see if I can get this to stretch to a full 2 hours now. I'm
not going to allow it.
No, I mean, I could fill with random noise. Here's some sleep facts.
So here's some sleeping disorders. So definitely check out Parasomnia at least once. It's visually a very good film. Last week I was like, I love this movie so much. This week I saw it, and
that's the thing, is it's one of those movies that you're gonna watch and you're gonna look back at 3-4 years later and you're gonna think, you know, I liked that movie. And then you're going to rewatch it and you're going to realize, man, that movie wasn't great.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely a couple of less stars. I don't like to do ratings, but definitely I have a rating system in my head. Like I always like to do like I'm always doing something, and sometimes like multiple things at once. If I put a movie on, the way I judge how good a movie is how much attention I pay to the movie.
Right, like if it's a movie that you can watch or that you can put on and you can't help but watch it, like that's a 10-star.
It's definitely like if I'm watching something and I stop what I'm doing or a game I'm playing and I focus on the movie for an extended period of time, that's a good rating. If I just kind of glance over at it and I watch it and then I'll go back and then I'll watch it some more and I'll go back, that's an okay one. But if I start the movie and next thing I know it's 2/3 of the way done, that's probably not one I'm going to watch again. This is definitely one of those that I probably would watch off and on.
Right.
You know, middle of the road. I wouldn't say it's horrible, but it's not one that I would probably watch multiple times.
You know, I kind of like that your rating system's like that, because mine's kind of like, can I fall asleep to it? If, like the other night I was like, I'm going to watch Legend of the Drunken Master, fucking classic, and I'm going to fall asleep to it, because that shouldn't be a problem. Bro, I got like 2/3 of the way through the movie before I fell asleep. It's like, okay, yeah, this is a solid movie. Meanwhile, this I got halfway through, and that was only because I was texting somebody as I was watching.
Right.
You know.
It's a weird thing. I always like to put something in when I go to sleep.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
No, I've got to do the same thing. I can't have silence. I've got to be listening to a podcast or watching a movie or something.
Right. I write like horror stories and horror screenplays and stuff, and I have a very overactive imagination. So I need to have something going on in my head that's not focused on that, or I will have like terrible nightmares. So I always like to have something going. And every once in a while I'll pop something in because I'm like, oh, this sounds good. Like I'll put in like J.J. Abrams' Star Trek or like Into Darkness.
Yeah.
Or something of that nature. And all of a sudden, like I'll watch the whole thing. And it's like 3 a.m. and I'm like, I didn't mean to actually stay up and watch this. I just wanted to fall asleep.
The last time that I watched The Crow, first of all, I got into a week-long binge then of watching The Crow like constantly, because that is such a fucking solid movie. That needs to be on our list at some point, because like, holy crap.
We'll do it on a 4-week thing.
But you know, like I did that, and I next thing I know, I'm like, oh man, it's like 2-3 a.m. and I got work in 3 hours, but I gotta keep watching this movie.
Yeah, this is probably not one of those.
No.
So check out Cabin in the Woods if you haven't yet. We're going to be talking about it next week. Check out Shaun of the Dead's DVD commentary this week too. While you're at it, we'll mention something else next week that is either good or absolutely horrible to stay away from. And yeah, that's going to be it for me. What about you, buddy?
You know what I got. You know, I like to ask viewers to do shit. Go ahead and let us know. Background noise in sleep, yay or nay? Let us know at Film Guild Cast on Twitter, or I guess Film Guild Cast on Facebook. Is that what we're listed as?
Yep, Facebook.com/FilmGuildCast or at Film Guild Cast on Twitter. Definitely let us know if you have stuff in the background, if you can't sleep, if there's something going on in the background. I have to be very particular. Like I remember one night I was in high school and I had Led Zeppelin on in my boombox. Like this is how long ago it was. And I fell asleep and I had a dream that the Grim Reaper was standing over my bed.
Well, that's a thing.
And I remember like I woke up because I was kicking my feet up in the air to try to kick him. And I like to believe actually that maybe he was over my bed and I fought him off, and that's why I've been given like the extra couple of decades of life I've had.
Oh man.
But it could have been like Led Zeppelin too.
So I was just thinking, you know, like sleep paralysis is kind of thing that engages to stop that, right? Right. That could be such a fucking great film of just a guy that you don't realize it during the thing, but it's all just, you know, sleep paralysis. Because like some people get some really freaky shit with it. I personally don't get it. I just get like, it's one of the worst feelings in the world for me, where it's like my brain somehow associates the inability to move stuff as like pain.
Right.
It sucks, and I can feel it coming on when I go to sleep, and so that's why I'll have some nights where I'm like, oh yeah, I've been trying to sleep for like 2 hours now, but I refuse to, because I know I'm gonna wake up here in about half an hour or so and be incapable of moving, and it's gonna suck.
Yeah, there was a thing used to be when I was younger. I haven't really had this in a long time, but I used to like, if I was living with somebody or somebody was like staying over, I would tell them like, sometimes I can't wake up, and I know I can't. Like either I'm lucid dreaming or something. Like I know that I'm asleep, and I would tell them like, sometimes I'm gonna like start freaking out, like breathing really weird, and that's a clue to you to shake me so I wake up. It used to happen to me all the time. Like I would know I was asleep, and I would know that I couldn't wake up, and I would force myself to breathe weird so that somebody might notice and like tap me because I was having a bad dream.
That's kind of fascinating, really. It's too bad you don't still have it, because that would be really cool to get into like a sleep study.
Dude, I've been single for years.
Well,
that's fucking horrible. I don't want that now. There's nobody to wake me up.
That's what we need then. It's like you need to get into a long-term relationship, and then just like and then come to find out it's just like some weird scientist from a sleep lab, and they're like, okay, we got to figure out what this is, and then guess what? We got a movie.
I'm willing to do it.
It could be like Boyhood, but with sleep.
If you want to sign up to monitor me as I sleep, send me a.
Here's the thing:
send me a tweet.
I feel like Nieper wouldn't be against it.
We'll talk to her about it.
Or
shout out to Oh My God Nieper Nuggets, who is one of our viewers on Twitch TV. We have a gaming channel on there, Smegco, and shout out to her. She's one of our great viewers, and
one of the few women who can come by and listen to us rattle on about what do we usually
crazy
talk
shit
about
for hours.
I guess lately it's been Transformer dicks and.
Yes, we have another viewer who writes fan fiction for that has Transformers having sex with each other.
And oh my God, it's fantastic.
It comes up. It is amazing. But so we're way over time. We are so way over time. I can't
by the way,
it.
Fuck you 2 hours.
Yeah.
What?
I was watching it. I saw it. Let's see how far I can trim it back.
Here's the things. I'm not convinced that you aren't going to put all this stuff out as like a bonus episode, like a bonus segment.
That would be amazing.
Like, oh, by the way, in order to fuck over Actatus, who, by the way, I don't know if you noticed, but I did mention you as Smeg earlier. It was a thing.
I did mention, I think I did mention last week, sometimes people on the podcast will refer to me as Smeg. It's because I go by Smeghead online.
Yeah, I think that was last week or the first week or something. It's like, it's one of those things where on stream we address each other by our sort of stream handles.
Right. My online nickname. So yeah, every once in a while somebody will call me Smeghead from Red Dwarf.
And I will constantly fucking call myself Actatus.
And he goes by Actatus. And actually I was talking to my brother David the other day, and I was talking about you. And I called you Actatus, and I'm like, why am I calling him Actatus? I'm talking about him like a
Don't worry. I constantly, when I'm talking to Mike, I'm like, so, I was talking to Smeg earlier today, and it's like, I could just call him Dad.
Right.
Nah, I'm just going to stick with Smeg.
It's one of those things. So, anyway, so check out Cabin in the Woods. Watch Shaun of the Dead. Why don't you tweet us and let us know what you'd like to see us watch or cover or talk about? Why don't you give me suggestions on great DVD commentaries or DVD commentaries you hate? Either way, we'd love to hear from you. Our viewership, our listeners definitely picked up last week. I'd like to see that continue. So definitely shoot us a tweet and let us know what you're thinking about. Let us even tweet us to say, guys, you're seriously, stop talking.
Guys,
stop fucking talking.
You've gone over an hour more than you should have.
I could watch this goddamn movie and I would be done before you guys are done.
Oh, but here's the thing: is they wouldn't have all that sweet commentary like what the fuck is going on in this movie, because it is a thing.
I've been teasing around sometimes that if we do start building up and we get a Patreon going, that every once in a while we'll do a special for Patreon people where we watch a movie live and just talk during the whole damn thing and post that as an episode.
I honestly wouldn't mind that though. It's like I almost kind of wish that we could just live stream movies and then just do audience interaction and chat and stuff through there. I wish that we could do live shows where it's we go there, we show the movie, and then we talk about it afterwards.
One day, my friend.
Oh my God, yes. Guys, pick up viewership. Go tell your friends, because I want
Here's
this
the
to
thing,
happen.
guys. If you're listening to this right now, I want you to call 3 of your friends. Tell them to subscribe to us on iTunes. Check us out on SoundCloud. Listen to us. Start getting that word of mouth out there. And maybe one day we'll be able to start doing live shows where we actually show the movies and talk afterwards. I would love that. That would be
Film
amazing.
Guild coming to a theater near you.
Yes, exactly. All right, guys. That is it from Jason.
And that's it from Fred.
We'll check out next week. Have an excellent movie viewing week.